Deep inside Ekpe, along the Lagos Lagoon, more than 145 villages are tucked away, far from the bustling city life. Lagos State, a vast expanse of lagoons and creeks with substantial coastal terrain, is both a place of interest and enigma. A beautiful disaster, a seaweed from South America, has taken over the lagoon, stopping life in its tracks. As far as the eye can see, water hyacinths create the sensation of endless green fields peppered with brilliant pink flowers. Women are giving birth depending on nature only, and their children are growing up, waiting for power and education, hoping for the future.
Kò jẹ́ ká jẹun àbá síìkì kò jẹ́ ká rìn bí jáde tá olóyún ó máa ń bímọ sínú ọkọ̀ a lè lọ́jọ́ mẹ́ta ká tó gúnlẹ̀ sí tọ́ọ̀kì wàhálà yẹn wá pọ̀ jù àárí bí jẹ àwọn kọ́sítọ́mù wa tó bá lọ sí ọ̀sà báyìí a máa gbé oúnjẹ lọ fún wọn lọ́hùn ni àárí bí jáde ó dìtẹ́ẹ̀nì wa nílùú àárí bí lọ síbì kankan àdẹ̀rí iṣẹ́ kankan ọ̀sà là ń ṣe iṣẹ́ ọ̀sà là ń ṣe ṣé ti yẹn sìn ọ̀nà mọ́tò yẹn gangan kán wá bá wa ṣe kọ́dẹ̀ wá bá a la bíbí apá àkógbèmù kan bá a ṣe títì wa bá ti bá a ṣe títì wa à ní gbádùn.
From Ologbokere to Bodun, Oriba to Ibon. In coastal villages in Ekpe, people urgently need access to healthcare, clean water and sanitation, energy, and the means to ensure their livelihoods.
Omi mímu ó jẹ́ ìṣòro fún wa. Sometimes tábà máa mu omi àfi ká gbé ọkọ̀ ká cross lọ sí other side láti lọ pọn omi borehole. Kí cross sí other side yẹn máa ń dojú kọ water hyacinth tábà máa cross. Ìgbà míì ẹnu ọmọ mi lè lọ kó já lo 3 hours ní ìrìn tí ó yẹ kó ju 20 minutes. Tí ilẹ̀ bá ṣú wọn ẹ̀fọn mosquito ló máa jẹ wọ́n tí ó máa tó wá fa àrùn sí wọn lára. A ò ní hospital tí ìjọba lè fi máa care fún. Ìṣòro ńlá là ń dojú kọ tí àgbàlagbà bá sick, especially tí àwọn obìnrin bá lóyún tán bá máa bímọ. Èmi ọkọ̀ la máa gbé láti bí ká tó dé Èjìrìn, èmi àti bímọ sínú ọkọ̀. Èmi ọmọ ẹ̀ á bímọ tán máa bleed tó jẹ́ pé èmi faint ká tó lè dé Èjìrìn. Àdẹ̀ tí ìrọ̀gbọ́n dá sí di wákàtí ìjọba náà láyé ń wojú ẹ̀. Àwọn àgbàlagbà wa tán bá ti dàgbà díẹ̀ tó tútù bá ti mú wọn àti gbé wọn hospital náà wàhálà ni. Èmi tó jẹ́ pé ìrìn hospital tí ò yẹ kó ju 10 minutes or 15 minutes tó jẹ́ pé òbèlè kenú la máa lò ká tó lè gbé wọn dé hospital. Èmi àti dákẹ́ ká tó dọ̀hún.
Iṣẹ́ ọ̀sà ni ọkọ mi ṣe àdẹ̀ máa ń ẹja yẹn máa lọ ń tà so àwọn ìgbébùnrin tó bá ti gbà mí báyìí ó máa ń wùkú wa àráyè ń jáde a lè lo 3 days 4 days ní ẹ̀yìn bíbá yìí tá a ní ráyè jáde rárá láti jáde lọ ta àwọn ọjà wa kọ̀ọ̀kan bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣàṣọ ìgbébùnrin yẹn gbogbo wọn iṣẹ́ tá à ń ṣe yìí òun la fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ ń bí la fi ń jẹun so tí gbébùnrin tá a bá tún wá ti lọ dẹ wọn kọ̀ọ̀kan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ó máa ń ba gbogbo iṣẹ́ àwòrán yẹn ó máa ń bàjẹ́ so máa pcc ẹ̀ òun dẹ̀ la fi ń manage la fi ń jẹun bí so tá a bá dẹ̀ ti pé kọ̀ọ̀kan yẹn bàjẹ́ ṣá àbí kọ̀ọ̀kan bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣògbọ́n dẹ̀ sí ìfẹ́fọ̀ láti máa ṣe máa wá owó láti tún fi lọ fi ra nǹkan ẹ̀mí so àwọn gbébùnrin yẹn dẹ̀ máa ń disturb tẹ́ kó máa ń ba nǹkan yẹn jẹ́ so dẹ̀ máa ń pcc ẹ̀.
Mo jẹ́ ọmọ Ìkòròdú. Mo wá síbí báyìí láti wá ṣe iṣẹ́ apẹja torí wọ́n máa ń pẹja ń lu yìí. Torí ẹ̀ mo kọ́ṣẹ́ mechanic. Mo nídìí owó torí pé iṣẹ́ tí mo kọ́ mo fẹ́ ra irinṣẹ́. Mo dẹ̀ fẹ́ ṣe freedom. Torí ẹ̀ mo wá sílùú láti wá owó láti wá ṣiṣẹ́ ọ̀sà.
Nǹkan tí mo rí ìbáyìí ni pé bí ìbáyìí bó ṣe wà kò sí iná ń bẹ̀. So school tó dẹ̀ wà ń bí ìbáyìí náà kẹrì kò tí sí tíṣà púpọ̀ níbẹ̀ kò sí tíṣà púpọ̀ níbí báyìí school tó wà níbí báyìí bẹ́ẹ̀ kẹ́ wọ́n textbook tó máa ń fún wọn ní ìgboro yẹn wọ́n gbé wá sí bí báyìí fún wọn student wọn ní bí báyìí kò dé tí wá sí títì kò tún sí omi kò tún sí anything bọ́ọ̀ oríṣiríṣi àwọn bọ́ọ̀ tó wà ní gbòòrò kò sí ní bí báyìí so nǹkan tó ń tẹ́ wa ní bí báyìí nìyẹn.
Basic sanitation is absent, since their source of drinking water, the lagoon, also serves as the main conduit for waste disposal.
We need to create a coastal development agency at the level of Lagos State that can look at housing, infrastructure, water supply, health system for these people. We need to make this environment comfortable for these people to live in. Lagos is not just about the central Lagos or metropolitan Lagos. First and foremost, we need a short-term intervention. Government needs to come and reach these people at their health, especially in the area of health challenges, water supply, and schooling. Secondly, as a long term, we need to create a coastal development agency at the level of state to address holistically all the problems encountered by these people.
This project is a call to action to support the sustainable development and human rights of these riverine communities.
My name is Adu Shedu. I'm from Kogi State. I live in Abuja. I'm a fashion designer tailor. On that last year, October 2020, early in the morning, I fetched water for my wife. After my praying, I fetched water for my wife around 6. I went to go my working place for St. Farako. And when I reached junction for police somebody, I see crowd. Everywhere was blocked. I tried to find my way. I cannot find my way. I went back to house again around something 10 to 11. I said, make I find my way go work. I get family. My daughter is a 2 month that time. I can't find my way. I just stand. They leave people where they protest. I'm not a protester. I'm a fashion designer. I tailor where the house up and down to feed my family. After then, police just came. They shoot. The next thing when I see, I just see my leg, they cover, I'm not carry my leg again. Where would it get? They thought they'll do everything. They clean my body and my laps, they clean everything. We go and do another X-ray again to see how the inside be. Where we did the X-ray after then, the doctor charged us 400 and something. But since then, my brother he not have much like that. So maybe they carry me go Gogolada hospital, general hospital for Gogolada. One doctor waiting for the hospital come bring one number. Said na youth where they in charge of this NSAS. Anything will happen to somebody like this, they feel help. Actually, we try the number. By God's grace, the person where they pick the call. I'm talking to them, I don't even know the person where pick my call, than a woman on a man, I don't know. He and the doctor speak. She transfer the money to the doctor. They start the treatment. People Nigeria they can do money from almost like 60,000. One day, all they hear say I don't hear that say all the panel, the people wey panel, where government choose for this thing, anything where this thing affect, they help, they make the report. We go to national human rights for inside town. We almost look like almost like 5 or 6 people. The guy where the parent where they kill in children for where bullet hit for chest. They follow us go that time. Where we reach there, we stay for gate. Now we they sing. Now one person come call us and make one of our or the person where they in charge make it enter inside, make go meet the people they there. After they meet the people, they come and say make they come tomorrow. The next day, almost like 3 days, my brother called them. They say the people never answer them very well. That the government they bring up black paper and they need to bring white paper if they want to do better thing for people this thing affect. But today I never hear from them because this thing, this police don't make this life tire me because this my leg now, no feel and do anything. Even the bullet is still there on my leg. The place where the bullet the doctor said they no fit remove am for now because they the way the vein dey. Now here in there. They will no fit remove am for now. Let the bullet come out that place where in there. If they want to remove am, they keep come enough harm to my leg. Even like this my leg, not move am like this. But I try to move am like this, I fit do am. If I want use and do work self, but if I want try to use and do work, make I dey use and do exercise. I no fit use and do work well. I dey use industrial machine. But you can press machine like this, the thing to carry and come back, I'm not fit carry and come back. I just need help from Nigeria government, need help from police, please. They don't scatter my life. I'm not all this will happen to me. I not be expect. Since almost a year now, please stay for us. How are you they feel now? Let go of another question. I don't know. But my brother always try for me. But I don't feel like on my brother forever. Just thank God say I still there alive because my time now reach. Now let God know how it takes in my life. Me, I don't even know if that bullet you hit me for tail, hit me for head. I don't know how God even give me a miracle, how it takes in my life. I don't know, sure. But I thank God for everything. I just thank God for everything. Great God saved my life.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Ecosphere. I am Mary.
Kanu. Now, Nigeria is used to seasonal flooding, but this year has been significantly worse than usual. The government has said unusually heavy rains and climate change are to blame. The emergency release of excess water from dams both in Nigeria and in neighboring Cameroon is said to be another key factor causing devastating flooding. Experts have also said poor planning and infrastructure have exacerbated the damage as the disaster has affected 27 of Nigeria's 36 states. And Nigeria's meteorological agency has also warned that the flooding could continue until the end of November. More than 600 people have died in the worst flooding Nigeria has seen in a decade, while about 1.3 million people have been displaced and more than 200,000 homes have been destroyed. Now, to help us better understand why Nigeria has suddenly been hit with this disaster is environmental expert Aribabu Suleiman. It's good to have you join me on the program, Suleiman. Now, let me ask you that ever since the flood disaster hits Nigeria, there have been speculations about climate change being one of the factors responsible, as well as the water release from Cameroon's Lagdo Dam. But how much of this is true? Is it climate change or the Lagdo Dam?
They are one and the same. They are same, different side of same coin, actually. Because the Lagdo Dam that was released is released because Cameroon also received excessive rainfall, which the dam could no longer hold. And of course, the dam had to be released on September the 13th. But, you know, like the Minister of Water Resources said, that is just a little portion of what hit us in Nigeria. We also received our own fair share of rain. Now, it's not only Lagdo Dam that was released. Tika Dam in Kano was also released. If you remember, the flooding started actually in Bauchi, so it has nothing to do with Lagdo Dam. The Lagdo Dam release started to manifest along the Benue River coast. So you saw communities first in Adamawa, and then up to Nasarawa, and then Benue being flooded as a result of that. But by and large, what is happening is that we're experiencing a pattern of rainfall that has not been hitherto, but due to that climate change, we're having sometimes amount of rainfall that ought to spread for about 2 months could come down in 3 days. Unfortunately, both our rivers and dams and other water containment systems become overwhelmed as a result of this. And this is not peculiar only to Nigeria. We saw what's happening in parts of Europe. We saw what's happening in Pakistan, in some other parts of West Africa. So as climate change continues to change the way our weather pattern is, we are going to be experiencing things, not things that we have not experienced before, but in proportion that seem to overwhelm our preparedness. And this is where we need to focus our attention on. There will always be this kind of flooding. There will always be every amount of rainfall that could lead to flooding. But how much impact it has on us and how much disaster we witness is a function of our preparedness and our response.
Now, Suleiman, sorry to cut you here, but I know the situation is bad, but would you say the worst is yet to come? And is this, we can target a natural disaster. Is this something that you think can be prevented?
So we cannot prevent the rains from falling the way they have fell. That is beyond us, because that is the whole essence of climate change. There are going to be extreme weather events. You see, climate change on its own scientifically will happen whether humans interfere in nature or not. What we are witnessing is that we are accelerating the rate of change beyond what our planet is able to counterbalance. Not only that, we are also reducing the ability of our planet to counterbalance some of the extreme things that we are witnessing. For instance, we have a lot of deforestation. All our green areas, all our wetlands have been built up. So these are places that naturally will contain such excessive water for us and reduce the impact on us. We are largely the reason why we're experiencing. So if you ask me whether this amount of rainfall could be prevented, no. If you ask me whether flooding at this scale could be prevented, it's neither here nor there. But if you ask me whether the impact, whether the devastation, whether the loss of life, loss of livelihood, loss of crop, loss of animals, loss of properties could be minimized, yes, definitely we could have done much, much better.
Now, how would you rate the response of the federal government to the flooding and displacement in the face of an even worse situation? Do you think there'll be a high level of survival rates in Nigeria?
Well, it is tough because let's interrogate that question, the response of the federal government. It shouldn't be the response of the federal government only, response of government. Because the federal government will tell you that it's responding through NEMA and some of its agencies that is responding through the military. The Air Force has been lifting relief materials in Bayelsa. But the problem is that most of the states in Nigeria do not have a standard emergency management agency. They just have something ad hoc. Except for Lagos, Kaduna, Borno, and Abuja, all of them just have ad hoc. So the disaster risk reduction strategy for the states are not clear. And you know, local government and state governments are the ones directly involved in this situation. They are the first that, I mean, the rate at which the state governors quickly raised up their hands in surrender and calling on federal government is astonishing. It is annoying. You know, so the preparedness is poor at the level of government across board. The federal government perhaps is even doing better. But if you want me to rate in terms of response, yes, it is equally poor. This flooding had been predicted earlier in the year. The projections about having massive flooding had been issued by NISA. NIMET had earlier predicted that there will be much rain this year. But you wonder what then did the Federal Ministry of Agriculture do in terms of making sure that farmers are able to, because you remember this flood hit us right at the big, as at when we were supposed to be doing the harvest for 2022. Perhaps if we had this flood in mind, the planting calendar for the year would have been adjusted. Perhaps if we had this flood in mind, the varieties to be planted would have been adjusted. Perhaps if we had this flood in mind, we would have advised some farmers, some level of people who engage in certain occupation or the other to have a rethink for the year so that we can minimize the loss. Because even for survivors, those who are dead, quite unfortunate, they are gone. But even those who survive may suffer more. Yeah, because people are totally displaced, their livelihoods totally lost, their properties totally lost. It's quite unfortunate. So government response is not good enough. NEMA, I believe, is a bit overwhelmed by this crisis because you hear the same agency in every state. Isn't that madness? This flood has affected over 30 states, and it's NEMA, with the state emergency management agencies just doing as if they are just there to assist, whereas they are supposed to be in the forefront. They are supposed to have their strategies, they are supposed to have their response plan activated even before NEMA comes in. And so we really have to have some frank conversation in this country. We really need to have some frank conversation.
Now, many Nigerians are only seeing the loss of lives and businesses and also damages to properties. But as an environmentalist, how badly would you say the environment has been damaged?
The environment is horribly damaged. It's horribly damaged. Because when you're talking about the environment, you also need to understand that the agriculture that we do is part of our environment. You also have to understand that what we are witnessing, this level of flooding, is going to create some public environmental crisis. There's going to be public health crisis, which is an environmental issue. There's going to be serious sanitation issue. Don't forget, in Bayelsa, it's reported that this is even going to the extent of exhuming corpses from the graves. These are environmental pollution. Many companies whose inputs, whose primary inputs are toxic or have polluting nature, and some of them are already over. Now we are not even taking stock of that. We don't even know what kind of chemicals are already going in with this flood to places where they shouldn't be going. So we have not even taken stock, but definitely the environment is badly hit by this. It's quite unfortunate. The environment is quite badly.
What mitigation methods do you think the federal government can put in place to avoid a situation like this from reoccurring?
I think even before we start, because the flood has not left, this flood may be with us till late in November. So we need to worry about people surviving right now. We need to worry about people having access to safe drinking water. Don't forget that, like we're talking about the impact on the environment, freshwater bodies have been inundated. Nobody will drink from this flood water that is passing by them. We're even talking about communities that didn't have access to fresh water to drink in the past. Now, this has compounded that we need to get water to people. We need to get people to safety. We need to provide security. I tell you, there are communities now where the level of theft has increased because those farmers that have lost everything, some are invading the farms of some who still have something left, or even their barnyard. It is as crazy as that because it's not because these people are wicked, it's existential for them. They need to survive. People have lost a lot. We need to do psychosocial support because this is traumatic, both for children and women, and also, of course, for the men. So we need to first help people out. We need to immediately put in place a containment plan. Now, food security is going to be impacted. We are moving into the dry season. Nigeria is not a country with very serious dry season farming. This year must be different. We must do serious dry season farming this year. So government needs to come to the aid of people to make that happen. This is the time to release food from the natural grain reserves of the country. We need to help people to survive now. And then government should be talking to the various research institutions. Come up with varieties now that as soon as this flooding is abated, farmers can go back. We need to recover as a country. And government needs also to help with insurance. Most times when you have banks and NILSA and all of them give loan to farmers and say they have insured, they only insure their money. They don't insure such that such farmers can return to those livelihoods. We really have a lot to do to help people during this flooding that has not left, immediately after it. And then as a nation, we now need to say, how can we ensure that never again will we be caught such unawares, and never again will we suffer this level of devastation? We are human beings, and God has blessed us with intellect, with the resources, with the technology to be able to see this coming and to be able to reduce its impact on us.
Well, Ariwabu Suleiman, environmental expert, thank you for your time and your contribution.
Thank you too.
All right. Well, we'll take a break here, but when we return, we'll be joined by a health expert as we look at the health implications of a third world country hit by flooding. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Well, on today's edition of the program, we are looking at the impact of the sudden flood on Nigerians. Well, joining me now to discuss the health implications of the flooding is Isiabasi Ekonem, a public health expert. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, Dr. Ekonem, I want you to please paint a picture of the dangers we're in health-wise now with the floods that have swallowed up humans, houses and businesses.
Thank you very much, first of all, for having me. I would say that the consequences or the devastating effect of the flood in most parts of Nigeria is extremely, extremely dangerous. Besides the destruction of lives, properties, and even the destruction of business and everything in most parts of the country, of particular importance, Bayelsa State, we've seen in some aspects of these places dead bodies floating on top of water. Cemeteries have been blown open by water, and decomposing bodies of humans who were buried many years ago, some months ago, are now floating on water. And unfortunately, people who are stranded in these flood. So we've seen decomposing bodies of humans that were buried so many years ago in some parts of Bayelsa State, even in some parts of Kogi State and Taraba State. Unfortunately, exposure of humans to these decomposing dead bodies is quite disastrous to the health. We've also learned that some humans or some Nigerians living in those areas do not have access to water supply. And so their own water supply is actually the flood that has been contaminated with the decomposing human bodies in cemeteries. I mean, the extent of the effect is quite devastating. Unfortunately, we've seen little to no commitment, not even a single commitment from the federal government. Rather, the people in the country are being blamed for not relocating or moving themselves and their families from the flooded communities. And this is on the heels of the fact that not even a single camp was created by the federal government. The negative effect of this is that we are going to be seeing an epidemic of diseases like cholera, amoebic dysentery, just name it. These are some of the things that we are going to experience. In addition to that, we are seeing a lot of farmland being washed by the flood. Food, crops, everything has been destroyed by the flood. And this means that we are going to have an untold food hardship, like the type in Yemen, Afghanistan, and other war-torn countries, because food production has greatly declined, and we have already seen some of those effects in the cost of foods in the country. Unfortunately, malnutrition, which is one of the drivers of death among young and old people, is going to begin to set in. Nigerians are barely feeding a day. Now with the flooded communities, which are basically the communities that produce food to Nigerians, this is going to be such a terrible experience, because most Nigerians now may not be able to afford food and other commodities to maintain livelihood. So honestly, the consequence of the flood is untold. Unfortunately, this is a time when we need the federal government and other relevant agencies to come in, support us with food supplies and all of that. But we are not seeing this. So we are going to see, on one hand, epidemic, disease outbreak. On the other hand, acute malnutrition among Nigerians. This is really, really, really untold.
Well, Doctor, in the last year, a lot of health workers, nurses, doctors have moved in droves to Asia, Europe, and other parts of the world. Well, how does this compound the problem of flooding, seeing that the country might soon witness a rise in infections due to the floods?
The truth is, when you look at epidemic outbreaks, you consider places like toilets, whether it's pit toilet or whether it's a modern, water closet, and you consider the fact that soakaways are now being washed by the flood. So you begin to see that all manner of debris, all manner of microorganisms are making direct contact with humans. I mean, you can only imagine the extent of disease outbreak that we're looking at. Unfortunately, this is more like the worst flooding that we've seen in the country in the last decade. And I can only imagine the extent of disease outbreak. I just hope that Nigeria, the Ministry of Health and other relevant NGOs in Nigeria, agencies, departments, are ready to tackle the aftermath of the flood. But unfortunately, we are seeing a federal government that is absolutely nonchalant about the concerns of the people. We want to use this opportunity to call on international agencies, because it seems like the federal government is not helping. So right now we need to depend on foreign donors, philanthropic organizations to come to our aid, to provide succor to people that have been to victims of flood, because this is the only way we can actually examine the extent of damage among these people, the extent of disease outbreak within these communities, and perhaps provide preventive or curative approach towards tackling some of the epidemics that would result from this calamity that has befallen us in our communities.
Still talking about this calamity that has befallen us in our communities, we can see that hospitals have been submerged. Even doctors are scared for their safety. So how does the government handle a spread of infectious diseases in these affected communities? Or what can residents do to help themselves in such a situation?
Well, in better communities, in saner climates, you begin to see government initiating what we call evacuation protocols. We bring in a helicopter to airlift people from the affected zones to safer zones, where they can have the IDP camps, where they will be assessed, because we are looking at a deployment of what we call emergency preparedness and response plan by the NCDC and other relevant organizations to assess the number of persons who may have been exposed to some of the pathogenic microorganisms within the flooded areas. Of course, when we are able to make this assessment, we can probably initiate management protocols where we first of all identify people who have been infected with these infectious diseases, and then look at ways we can treat them and provide maybe vaccination services for those who have not been infected to prevent them from getting infected with some of these pathogens. We need to also activate, provision of food supplies to these people so that they, some of them have been stranded. They have not eaten for so many days now. They need to be fed. We need to declare an emergency. And it's so sad that at a time like this, our President Muhammadu Buhari, is not concerned at all with what is going on. At this time, in other climates, we would have declared a state of emergency across all the states where this flood calamity has happened, and ensure that relevant agencies are on their toes to ensure that people are taken to safe zones, first of all, and then their health status is critically assessed, and then management and prevention protocols are immediately rolled out to ensure that we can limit the number of deaths. We have over 600 deaths already. We need to limit the number of deaths. We need to prevent person-to-person transmission as a result of exposure to some of the pathogenic microorganisms that has made contact with humans in the course of the flood. I think it is a multi-dimensional, multi-stakeholder, and of course cross-functional protocol or approach that would help us to ensure that those infected with these diseases within the flooded communities don't transmit these diseases to others who were not infected. I think it requires a lot of attention. It requires a lot of commitment from the government and other relevant agencies within and outside Nigeria to ensure that we limit or we contain the possible epidemic that arises from the flood in these communities.
Now, we've seen that Nigeria is heading towards its harvesting season, and, well, 84,000 hectares of land has been lost, and the agricultural sector, we know for a while now, has been hit with insecurity challenges. Now, the flood disaster has also worsened the situation. You mentioned that we might see a rise in malnutrition, but somehow, do you think there will be a recovery from this?
Well, I can say categorically that with regards to malnutrition, it might take us a while to be able to, ameliorate this situation because, like you said, thousands of acres of land have been awashed, and most of these lands being lands that have been previously cultivated. Some of them have been cultivated and the plants have been washed away. Of course, we are going to see a high level of malnutrition following food scarcity, and it might take us a while to be able to ameliorate this situation. What is important to us right now is to ensure that the epidemic, because that kills faster. I mean, compared to malnutrition, epidemic kills faster. We are looking at a wide range, a very wide range of epidemic that, in fact, the list is endless, that may come as a result of this flood. So I think the first thing we should do is to ensure that we tackle the epidemic that may arise as a result of the flood, and then of course look at how we can provide food. So we have some storage silos somewhere in Nigeria. We have grains and all other food storage in Nigeria. We need to open up those food storage. We need to ensure that we provide food for those who have been displaced. We need to, reintegrate them back into the society. For the properties that have been lost, we need to probably, provide succor, for these people. We might also need to do a psychological examination because a lot of people who have to lose everything, including their loved ones due to the flood, may be experiencing severe trauma as a result of the flood. We need to provide that services to them. And we also need to ensure that they are, fully integrated into the society. We provide camps for them while we look forward to ensuring that we take necessary steps to make sure that we reduce the effect of the flooding. I think what is also very important for us is that we as Nigerians, we are made of federating states. We need to call on other states to accommodate some of the people. Like the entire Bayelsa has been awashed. We need to look at how Rivers State and other neighboring states can bring them in to ensure that they have a place they can at least put up for now until the situation gets better. But honestly, we are looking at a very dire situation with very, very severe consequences. And I feel that it is time for the federal government to step in rather than play blame games. Because it's absolutely appalling to see the federal government that's supposed to come in, pick up these people, look for where they can be kept, feed them, assess their health status, and provide healthcare service to ensure that we reduce the number of deaths among these people. Unfortunately, the government is playing blame games, which is not going to help us. We need to make sure that we address this matter headlong. And also, on the long term, we must ensure that we address the issues. Because this issue has happened before. In 2012, we had this issue. And unfortunately, after over 10 years, nothing has been done about it. We need to be more proactive. We need to be pragmatic. Because Nigerian lives go when things like this happen. We have lost over 600 souls. We need to make sure that we help prevent more souls from from dying as a result of the infection, as a result of the calamity, the food malnutrition, and all others. We need to ensure that we take care of the people who have been victims of this rather than play blame games.
All right, now, Nsiabasi Ekanem, public health expert, thank you for your time and your contribution. Well, on that note, we call it a wrap on today's edition of the program. Thank you for watching. I am Mary Kanu.
On this special episode dedicated to one of the most essential premarital questions asked, we will be examining that particular question that can only solidify or thwart a marital journey. I am Mr. Adolf and you're within the four walls. Take a look at the green board. We will be doing with the classwork an examination where we will lead to the preface of the topic which says marriage and credentials. But right now, let's see the latest happening in the Nigerian education sector. The Ondo State government has said that it has become an offense for any teacher in the state public schools to enroll their children in private schools. The head press and information services of the State Universal Basic Education Board, SUBEB, in a statement in Akure, explained that government was worried over the situation despite its huge investment in public school sector. Now, this news is what I will be calling a special guest sometime to discuss why Ondo State is taking this step. We'll take a short break. When we come back, our special guest will be joining us to discuss marriage and credentials. Don't go, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Marriage and marital considerations have always begun with cultural, psychological, economic, and legal demands. Yet, the discussion on the academic qualifications of spouses are deeply considered, but will never be admitted publicly. Four Walls is set to x-ray why education attainment of spouses are so critical these days. To discuss this, I'm now being joined by two special guests, Uche Wazigo, a real estate expert, and Adiola Odufuwa, a food engineer. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Good evening, everybody. My name is Uche. Nice to be here.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Adiola.
Great to have you on the show. Now, let's start off with understanding why it is now very important for spouses to begin to consider how educated, how qualified, how many credentials their spouses need to have before they go into marriage. Let me start with the lady. Adiola, what do you have to say about that?
Okay, so it's very important that the man is as educated as I am, even if not necessarily to the same level, but he has to have a certain basic level of education. I don't want to get married to someone who cannot help with case assignments, someone who I cannot brainstorm with, someone who I cannot share ideas with. I don't want an empty head for your husband. It's basic. So he needs to have a certain level of formal education. Without that, it's a no-no.
Uche, she just said something that it has to be basic education, at least somebody who is... Would you fall in love with a lady and to get married, would you consider level of education as a man?
I would consider it, but I would consider it as secondary, because basically you are looking at somebody who is actually compatible. Then if she has educational qualification, then is a plus. I look at the educational aspect from the point of economic situation of Nigeria. I've gotten to the point where everybody has actually chip in. So if she's more qualified, it means it gives her that privilege to actually get a job and be able to earn more and be able to chip into the economy or the finance of the house. Then secondly, you actually don't want to marry somebody that you will get married to, and probably if you are incapacitated, probably a businessman, the person can't even balance the books or can't run the business. So you need somebody that actually has the basic educational qualification to be able to handle day-to-day activity of a company. Okay. So I think that's why people actually go for that.
Okay, this is getting interesting, because education, for example, it has to do with several levels. For example, if I'm talking to you, Uche, right now, with your university degree, and you're looking at the spouse now, who is going to be your wife, to have possibly an NCE or something slightly lower as we usually consider it. Would that matter to you when choosing?
It definitely matters. I can't imagine myself marrying somebody who can't actually have even NCE. Not having NCE or not having WAEC means you can't literally read and write. Although some people are self-taught, but what we're looking at is we're looking at people who are actually educated formally. If you have the formal education, it means you can actually be able to communicate. Having NCE means you can actually relate to some level of me when I'm talking to you. But if you can have BSc, Masters, it's even better. It's more preferable because some people actually takes time for them to actually grasp and understand what you are saying. And having that educational exposure actually plays a key part.
All right. Adiola, let me come to you with this. You are a woman. I understand that women, the modern women these days, believe that it has to be sometimes 50-50. I don't know if you believe in that school of thought. Now, if you are that kind of a woman who wants to continue that marital journey with a man and it's going to be 50-50, then considering credentials, considering educational background and all of that has to be something of importance. What do you make of your husband's educational background where it has to be 50-50?
Okay, so the point is, in as much as he's educated, he has basic understanding of how to communicate and how to run events, how to run a business and stuff. It is good enough. Fair enough. It doesn't matter even if it's NT or it's a teacher's training college certificate, because we all know that there are so many graduates who cannot even reason. They're not intellectually sound. So it's not about the degree that the person is holding. It's about the person himself. If he already, it could probably be one of all these not so blue collar jobs, and then he has a formal education, maybe SSA or NCA or something. But if he is able to project well and is open to learning and he has an open mind, vast knowledge, it's good to go. It's not until he has a master's.
Excuse me, let me bring it clearer.
Okay.
Being able to communicate with you, being able to understand, being open to learning, it is one thing. The economic aspect of it, because you need to be highly placed to earn enough to satisfy the woman and make the marriage run smoothly. Remember that communication and all of that, love and so on, it's not the only thing that keeps the marriage running.
Yes, I know that, and I do not disagree with it. But the point is this: there's many graduates that do 30,000 naira jobs. It's not about what you studied; it's about what you have in your head, what you can offer. So there's some people who probably didn't go to university, but they have so much to offer a company or a business. Take, for example, these tech guys these days. Not all of them are university graduates. You could have an NC and then you go, you take CCNA courses, you take web design, you take all of those courses, and you're more highly placed than a computer graduate, a computer engineering or computer science graduate. So it is what you have to offer. I need to know what is in his head, what is he bringing to the table. I don't want someone who has a master's and his master's is already redundant. He cannot break forth, branch into new fields. No, that's the basic thing. It has to be open.
Let me pan to Uche quickly. Uche, I understand that you're a married man.
I am.
You have a family,
yes.
A growing family. Now, before your marriage, did it ever cross your mind that you could possibly end up with a woman who is earning perhaps 2 times, 3 times more than you, who is far more educated and more exposed than you? Did it cross your mind? And if it did, what were your calculations and resolution?
First of all, earning power was never part of my calculation, but it crossed my mind that I could be marrying somebody who is actually more educated, in the sense that the person could be actually more qualified, having masters or PhD or what have you. It might even shock you that my wife is even more qualified. But being qualification on paper is different thing as being exposed and being able to reason well.
Reason well, what do you mean exactly?
Reason well in the sense that you need to actually train yourself to that point of being able to understand every level. I mean, part of being educated is not even just about solving the mathematics. It's part of you understanding how to reason. Let's say, as I am now, I have trained myself in a way that I can communicate with even somebody who has a BSc, a PhD, or even somebody with NCE, and they won't get offended. All I need to do is just switch in and bring myself to that level. So I thought if I'm going to marry somebody who is actually more qualified, what I need to do is actually step up my game. You know, I'm able to actually be at her level so I can actually understand what she's saying. And by so doing, we can actually reason well. Because you tend to see there's a communication gap when you have somebody who is way advanced educationally and the husband is actually laid back. So when the woman is talking something else, the man is thinking something else. Let me give you an example. There was one example one of our lecturers those days used to give. He said, before I will allow my son marry a woman, I will first of all ask for the woman's credential. I don't want to have children they will give birth to children that will look like their mothers, and when he comes around, they will start speaking nonsense. That's what I'm talking about is a professor, by the way. The first professor in mathematics in my school, by the way.
Okay, let me paint a little picture and make it more vivid for you. If you have a wife who is more educated, more exposed, perhaps had studied in a foreign country, and she has a job in one of the highest paying firms. Now, when it comes to domestic conversations, there are certain things she would bring in within the conversation that could puncture the ego of a man. I am not saying that this is eminent, but then it can come up. And the psychological aspects in it can be that she is relegating you to the background, because based on decision making, perhaps for travels and all of that, you could see that you might not be able to afford certain trips, and she is going to afford them and make the decisions how the trip is going to go. What do you do in that situation if it happens?
I told you, first of all, you have to build yourself, build capacity.
With what?
By reading books and exposing yourself, understanding people. See, most people who actually have inferiority complex, it was out of not having self-confidence. If you have self-confidence and know who you marry, then you shouldn't be more particular when issues come up. You shouldn't look at issues and, oh, is it because you're educated more than me? Look at issue dispassionately and look at issue factually, so you can be able to tackle them. Not, oh, is it because you are now more educated than me? No, that shouldn't always come. That's you having inferiority complex. And how you deal with it is by actually exposing yourself way beyond what you have learned in the four walls of the university. So if you have somebody who has gone to overseas to actually study, and I am here in Nigeria, it doesn't stop me from reading books abroad. It doesn't stop me from actually watching films and learning and asking people what, and so I can actually prepare myself for that marriage.
All right. So, let's take a listen to what a woman is going to say, because she is right here, and from the women's perspective, I think she's going to represent. What do you feel, Adiola, if you're in a situation where your husband is the one that is mega educated, highly exposed, from that background that can sponsor education to the highest level, and perhaps as a wife, you don't have all that merit? How are you going to navigate through that marriage and have everything balanced with your background, your educational attainment and all?
So one thing I've come to notice from what I've seen around is, no matter how versed you even tend to be, once one of the partners is ahead, there are always certain times when there are always slight issues where one party is making reference to the other party's low level or thereabouts. But the thing is, once the person knows that, if he's thinking, he feels that he has a PhD and then I have just a first degree, but he sees that I can relate on that level of the PhD, even before he brings the suggestions, I bring them to him. What I see that happens most times to ladies is they want to sell fine face, but there's nothing in the head. They just want to sell beauty without brains. So I would really like to challenge my gender, as we popularly say these days, that equip yourself to be better. It's not just the beautiful face and the figure that we have to offer. What do you have to offer intellectually? I might just have a first degree, like I stated earlier, equip myself with professional courses. And it might be something that even he that has a PhD doesn't understand. So it's basic that you're open to learning, you're good at improving yourself.
Okay, open to learning, good with improving yourself and so on. In a situation where your husband now is not so learned and he is not open to the learning, and you love to learn, you're open to it and so on. Now it's another angle to which you would be struggling in that marriage. A husband that is typically, most people would explain it this way, an African man, and you are the modern, urbanized, educated, highly exposed, and so on. Where do you place education, that exposure, in your marriage in order not to alter the relationship that is perhaps going on beautifully?
Okay, so I would say that no relationship will exist if it's not open to learning. I wouldn't waste my time.
Then the man is not ready to learn. The man perhaps had felt that, oh, I'm traditionally trained, I can earn my money.
Yes.
What?
No, it doesn't happen like that.
Do you know that most, let me not say most African men mostly believe that what a woman needs is the pampering. What a woman needs is to bring money home and so on. So whatever question are concerning credentials, education, being open to learning, shouldn't bother you, shouldn't bother us in this marriage. If it is happening.
Oh, okay, I'll say maybe to a certain breed of ladies or to a certain sect of ladies, but definitely not to all. I really believe so much in the power of what a woman can do. And I feel that a woman's place should not be relegated to the kitchen or to the house running chores. So for that, if he doesn't understand the fact that I have a passion for that, there's no benchmark, there's nothing, because I believe marriage is all about sacrifice. So if he is not ready to sacrifice certain things that he believes are the norm, if we already have issues while dating or while we're seeing each other, then I shouldn't proceed into marriage because it's going to be a hell of a trouble.
Okay.
So there's really no point there.
Okay, before we take a short break, I want Uche to quickly tell us how true this is. Uche, would you be able to support your fiancé in education before marriage, financially?
Definitely. But I would do it guidedly, you know. If I'm going to support her to go to any education, it won't be her going there and staying in the hostel. So she will
quickly tell us more before we go on that short break.
She will likely be staying close to me or even with me. So because if you actually, you know, the both of us have actually gone to school and we've seen what some, not all, some married women do. So I will want her to actually catch up brain-wise, but I wouldn't want to lose her because if she go to the university, she might see somebody even better. And you know, most undergraduates already have time, so they will invest time plus good looking and all that. So I will not want her to be tempted in that sort, but I will support her. Why not? I will support her.
Well, we'll come back after the short break. Don't go. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Still with me is Uche Wazigo, a real estate expert and a food engineer, Adiola Adufuwa. This is Forward, and we are talking about marriage and credentials. So Adiola, before we went on short break, you heard what Uche said, that, well, that sounded like a man who is a little bit insecure, but then I wouldn't blame him. What do you make of what he just said? Do you think it is important, for example, you have a younger brother who you need to advise towards his marriage, and you find out that he's sponsoring his fiancée in school? What would you say or do?
Okay, so it's two ways. I'd advise him to prepare himself two ways. It's either she comes back refined to him or she goes with someone else. Because so many times, I had colleagues who were married while in school, and I know what happened to some of them. Some of them were still loyal and faithful, but a lot of them, really, the temptations that come around, they are unable to stay on.
All right.
But then, that is married people. So don't see that they are just engaged. Yes. Anything can happen. Engagements can be broken. So it is better that I support him that you're close by, you can monitor. Even with the monitoring, you can still lose your friends. So.
Okay, so we are going to do a grading, but before we start with the grading, let us quickly get this perspective cleared. Uche, first and foremost, What advice would you give young men who are planning to settle down in case someone who is ready to settle down and someone who they're in love with, it's not so educated and time is running out? What would you advise that young man to do?
If the person they're getting married to is not educated?
Yes. And time is running out. There is no time.
First of all, does the woman check all the boxes? Can she communicate with you? Is she the type that is willing to learn? It's not even about going to university or going to the 4 1s. Is she willing to teach herself? Is she willing to learn from you? If she's somebody who can easily be taught, why not? When she checks other lists, why not? You can go ahead with the person and marry the person. But just like what my co-guest said, if the person is not willing to learn, I mean, you can only force the horse to the river. You can't force the horse to drink water. It would be a no-no for me.
All right, Adiola, in preparing for marriage, what would you advise a young woman to do? Because in as much as we believe that the man is the head of the family, of course, the woman is said to be the homemaker. What advice would you give to a homemaker, well, a ready-to-be homemaker?
Advice is that she should bring something else to the table aside from her beauty. It is enough. We have enough situations where ladies are just getting married for the fun of it. They want to belong. What are you willing to offer here? What do you have to bring to the table? It's not getting married to you to come and become your father. No, you should be able to support him. What are you bringing to support him? What are you offering? Equip yourself, build yourself, become a better version. And then you will find an equal version of what you are.
All right, now let's go straight to grading. In our grading, we have A, C, and F. A is excellent, C is fair, F is terrible. Now, this is what we're going to grade, and we're starting with Adiola to help us with this grading. Adiola, how would you grade the idea of sustaining a marriage in a situation where the man is highly educated, intimidating, he's a narcissist and so on? How would you grade that idea that these are the things that are going to happen to the woman if the man is so highly educated in the marriage? How would you grade it?
Can I get the grading again? I missed out on one.
Okay,
can I get the grading again?
Okay, this is the grading. A is excellent, C is fair, F is terrible. The idea now behind it is what I want you to grade.
Okay, the idea is terrible.
It's terrible. All right. Uche, how would you do the grading? A, C, F, A for excellent, C, fair, and F.
I would want to go to C.
Wow.
Because the man is very educated. I think you should find a way to actually bring the wife closer.
Okay. So it's still better that it's fair
it is
for a man to be highly educated, and with that comes with other things like intimidation. Intimidation might not be what he's putting out. It might be what the other person is feeling. Very good. So this is all we can take for this show, Marriage and Credentials. And this is not actually going to be the end of this series because we're still going to explore further. Uche Wazigo, a real estate expert, and Adiola Odufuwa. She is a food engineer. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So that is the end of today's show, Marriage and Credentials. What you feel about it, you can share with us on our Facebook, 4 Walls on Facebook. Until I meet you next time, bye for now.
I met a friend on Facebook, a Zambian precisely, so we talked about migration, that's me coming over to Zambia for a good job. So I was into fumigation and clothes selling, mobile sales before I left. So when the thought came of relocating to Zambia, when I checked the economy of both countries, I found out that Zambia, though small, but their currency is quite better than Nigeria. Applied for visa, my visa was granted, I purchased my tickets, and then I left. I flew through Kenya Airline. That was on the 1st of June. I arrived Zambia on the 2nd. And then I called this my friend, and I told him I'm in Zambia. So where I was, he moved me to another lodge, a hotel. And that was where I was assaulted by him. He was even dragging my passport. He wanted to get my passport, my yellow fever vaccine card. But because I hid it very far, he couldn't get access to it. He tore my bag, went away with my BTA. It's $885. And then I didn't see him, he absconded. When he left, he didn't pay the hotel bills. He had gone with my money. I couldn't find my money in my luggage. So when I noticed that things were not what we actually planned, I had to become friends with a gardener boy in that hotel. So that previous night, I was asked to move out of the hotel because he didn't pay the bills. But I noticed that he and the receptionist were in good accordance. So I tried asking the receptionist, did that man tell you he was going to come back? He said no, and he's owing for a night, that I can't stay in that hotel. So they had to seize my luggage, seize my properties. I had to look for where to sleep. So that fateful night, I slept in an abandoned vehicle where I was almost gang raped by 3 guys. I had to start this Nigerian movie. I'm with HIV, I'm with this, I'm with that, So you want to, sleep with me and all that. So they made away with my travel documents, my return tickets and all that. They thought it was an envelope of money. So they went with it after tearing my jean and all that. But they couldn't have access to, because I started shouting. That was around 3 o'clock in the morning. I started shouting, creating scenes, so they ran away. When you leave Nigeria, and I left genuinely, but what I proposed wasn't what I got. So it was while I was in Zambia I discovered I was human trafficked. So it's real. When you go, you come back, you're alive, you just say, God, I thank you, and you pick up the pieces of your life and start all over.
My name is Ibia Blessing, a sculptor artist, hailed from Benin, Edo State, Oredo. My artwork is generally all about me, my environment, and the society I found myself. And those are the things that influence my art. Most of my artwork, some of them are political statements underneath with beauty, like the ape you just saw, titled Vagabond in Power. Today in Africa and the world, we seem to have a lot of vagabonds in power, and they have made life so difficult for the common man. I see those leaders as an animal, so I decided to represent some of them in the form of an animal. Like in art, in Dadaism, white forms are represented in animal forms. So I see them in that way. You can also find such leaders in our university, in our offices. I see them like an animals. That's why some of my sculptures piece you can see around, some of them are animal forms, some of them are human forms. And generally my art is highly being influenced by my environment. I love nature. I love people. I love faces. That's why you keep seeing them playing around my work. I see myself as an artist because I don't just sculpt iron. I sculpt, I paint, I do anything in art, I perform. I believe art is not supposed to be limited to a setting there. To say I'm a metal sculptor, I'm a tire sculptor, I'm a wood sculptor. No, you are an artist. Talking is a form of art. Dancing is a form of art. Performing art. Everybody do art. But unknowingly to some people. Actually, I can say that I was blessed. Blessed in all ramification. From my mother's side, my grandfather was a traditional carver in the ancient Benin court art by the Great. He was a Benin court artist, he carved wood. In my father's side, my father was an art dealer when it comes to Atik. I was so privileged enough to be born into the center of art, the airport art, the ancient Benin airport art. My father's house was the airport art in Mission Road. There, traditional carvers comes around from all over to come and carve and sell. They carve their traditional art, like wood carving in shadow, they carve some artwork, shadow and human forms, abstract and human forms. So I was born into it. I grew up to meet my uncles, my people I call mentors and masters. They were all carving wood. I was also privileged enough, my late uncle Ben Osawe, of blessed memory, the famous sculptor. He was also a sculptor, my uncle. I was privileged enough to work with him. As the last I worked with him in wood carving, in modeling. What really made me dive into metal? I realized that everything around me has been wood. my grandfather and my mother's side, wood carver. From my father's side, wood carver. Everybody is wood. And I used to carve wood, but the pain of carving wood in my shoulder is too much. I say, what can I do that I will not be eating too much of hammer, igbam. I see the way they are eating their hammer. I say, if I continue like this, now die you. So I said to myself, I want to turn iron to look like wood. At the same time, I want to be better than my fathers. My fathers were limited to traditional carving. There were no opportunity to go to school. I said to myself, I will go to school and I'll study school of art. Then my late uncle said, hey, he himself also went to school. His father was also a carver. It was an opportunity to study in London too. I said, uncle, if you can go to school, I for 1 year, I will go to school. So I was opportunity to get admission into Aunchi Polytechnic. So I started from the scratch, from pre-ND. Like play. I like using broken alongside my English because I'm a very, very, very down to earth. I'm an African man. I love my where I come from. So from Aunchi Polytechnic, I went there. I was privileged enough to study general art. From general art, I found myself in sculpture after some challenges, whatever. So after the school, even when I was in the school, the lecturer would tell me, this is not how to do metal in this school. We cut hole here, we cut hole here. I say, but this is the way I want to do it. My classmates will be laughing at me. You are saying my style. But this is my style. This is what I like. This is how I like it. They say we will not score you. I say it doesn't mean. And most importantly, I'm coming out as a sculptor. So I left school. I was privileged enough after my school. I wanted to serve in Benue State. After my service in Benue State, I stayed back for another 4 years in Benue. I never wanted to come back to Benin. I realized if I should go back to my family house, they will want to start dictating my life. I want to be free, so I stayed in Benue for 4 years. From Benue, I started making my sculptures, bringing them to Lagos to sell, to clients, to various people. There I was opportunity enough to meet Mama Nike of Nike Art Gallery, Art Foundation. She likes my work. Over the years, she started patronizing my art. I was also privileged enough to meet Mr. Jeff, Third Pyramid Art Gallery. He likes my art, he started patronizing my art. But the originality about my work is that by my metal sculpture, I try as much as possible to make my work look like wood, so that where I'm coming from will not be lost. Why I say that I see myself as an artist, not a sculptor. I see myself as an artist because I felt to myself, if I call myself a metal sculptor, I have cut myself off from the origin where I'm coming from, which is the wood carving. If I call myself a wood carving, I have cut myself off from where I went to learn in the school. Okay, if I call myself tire sculptor, I have cut myself off from the other side. The only thing I can call myself is just an artist, because I see myself as just an artist. Since I started art, I will not lie to you. It has really been a game of thrones. Game of Thrones, you win some, you lose some. But I try to make sure that my wins will be more than my loss. Some people like my work, some don't like my work, but I keep going. The beautiful part of it is that I love what I'm doing. I can say most time I don't even say, but I keep working. It's just like somebody that is an addicted to singing. Even though you put him in the prison, he will keep singing. He's addicted. And there's a song that says I'm an addicted. I love what I'm doing. It gives me joy when I'm doing my art. Whenever I handle my materials and I'm working with it, I feel this kind of joy in me. It's not the money. If you are looking for money, I don't think art should be where you should run after money. The money won't come in time, just the way people think. Art is something you do for the love of art, for passion. With time, money will join. But for me, I do art for the love. Through the love, money comes in good. I pray that money comes in, but I love what I'm doing. To set up a sculpture studio, an art studio, no matter how small it is, it's not easy. Things are sculpture is very expensive because it's art. It's very expensive. In Nigeria today, we don't have power. One of the greatest limitations as a sculptor artist is power. If you are to buy a diesel generator, you need to owe nothing less than $500,000 naira to be able to buy one. If you are to buy a normal generator, you need to own almost 400,000 to buy one. If you are to buy other soft machines, they are very expensive. I started from the scratch without no family support. My father was not rich. My mother was not rich. But I believe in what I'm doing. The little money I'm making, I try as much as possible to save and buy my equipment. Because I know that those equipment is what that will take me to another level. And I'm still buying some. I have not bought some, but I've got most of them. So the journey of as an artist, you need to be dedicated. You need to believe in yourself. Whether people say that you are doing it right or not, you don't need to. Criticism may come in, filter it. Pick the one you know is good for you and let go of the shafts. In the course of sculpture, because of art in general, other challenges, one is to make a work of art, two is to get a buyer. Making a work of art is as easy, but getting the buyer is the main cocoa, is the main war. Some people will just say, I like it, I like it, I like it, I like it, but to come bring money, not be play. Not everybody that likes your work that want to buy them. Some people just want to use you, as in get your work, make some money out of it and throw the shaft to you. But as I always say, if you close your eyes for bad things, you don't want to see bad things passing. When good things are passing, your eyes will still be closed. But the beautiful part of it, art is not really easy to sell. But if you love what you are doing, keep doing it. As an artist, some days may go by, you may not have money to even buy a recharge card. Sometimes you may not be able to feed yourself. Let's be sincere to ourselves. But what keeps you going is the passion and love you have for what you are doing. Because if you love what you are doing, you keep doing it. No matter what you lay your hands on, you keep working. You keep making more research to get more affordable material to work with. In the course of art, general milestones that I've achieved, there are so many. There are so many. Through the grace of God, I have been able to make some international connections. I have works in US, I have works in France, I have works in notable places in Nigeria. And I have been able to meet some great men and women all around the world. Like the famous Timaya have my work of art. The musical artist, my work of art. You can get to see some of them in the walls of Top Pyramid. My work of art, most of them are in abroad, in private collections. I don't want to mention names, though I've mentioned some. I've achieved more. I've been able to see things for myself, get to meet people that matters. And you have been able to meet great men and women that have positive impact in my life and in my art. If I have not gone into art, I may not have met them. Actually, I've done some exhibitions, some group exhibition here and there. In 2016, the Connector Gallery. I've done another one at Nikki Art Foundation and done some other exhibitions like that. But when I finish my sculptures here, I often exhibit my work of art in Nikki Art Gallery. There you can get to see most of my work. I also exhibit some of them in Top Pyramid Gallery. As I earlier said, this is just a studio. I exhibit more of my work in those places I earlier mentioned. And some private collectors can come around and say, we would like to exhibit your art in our show. They exhibit, we make sales. Yes, I do exhibit my work of art for now. Instagram and Facebook have played a very big role in the art industry. A very big role. Most of the people that do give me calls, I don't know them from Adam. They saw my work on Instagram, EBA Blessing or Blessing EBA. They'll just message me. We like your work, we like to have one of your pieces. We get to talk. Some of them come around to the studio. Some make an order, we deliver. Instagram, the social media have been of great help, which is few people have been of great help to my profession and to me. As I earlier said, I work with several materials. But for now, the materials I'm really working with are metal sheets, nuts and tires for now. If I'm making a sculpture with metal sheets, first of all, I make a sketch. I make a sketch with my rod. The sketch I make with my rod, I take a paper trace from the rod sketch. After the paper trace from the rod sketch, I cut out my metal sheet. I beat to form. I weld it with an arc welding machine. I fire to get to the form. I patinate. That piece is ready. If I'm working with tire, the first thing I do earlier on, I get a maquette or I make a sketch. I make a construction, which is the framework. After making the framework, I get my tires. There are tires that are suitable for tire sculptures. They are called tread tires. There are two types of tire in the market, tread tire and iron tires, iron tread tires. The iron tread tires cannot be cut. Even though you cut it, the metal inside will still be of hazardous to the client or the person using it. So I normally use tread tires. And you can get to see more tread tires in bike tires and bicycle tires. After cutting my tires into strips, then I use my drilling machines to drill them. I use electric riveting machines. I order for some of my machines abroad, which I'm using to band the tires and the iron together. After banding them, the form of whatever form I want to build will erupt. Then I patinate it by me paint it. That is what it is done. The process of making that kind of a sculpture piece, one, you get the clay model. You model with clay. You set an armature, you model with clay. If you are working on a resemblance, you get a picture of the resemblance, you model it on the clay. You prepare the mold with concrete. Concrete is cement and sand. You prepare it, you now mix it together after done with the clay work. You oil it, you divide it with metal chins. Metal chins are aluminum to divide the clay. You apply the cement, which is the concrete, on the clay work all around. By the time it's set up, you liberate it. Which one you earlier saw. After liberating it, you open it. You chip up, you clean it up, clean up the clay from it. The form that was in the clay will now appear on the concrete. Then you get your nut. You arrange it inside the mold, you wet it out, you pull it up, you clean it with iron brush, you join them together neatly, and that is how that piece is being achieved. I believe knowledge is meant to be shared. I receive CWE students from several schools, IT students. From now, we have some students from Osun State Polytechnic. We receive students from several schools. In the far north, some student comes around. I do train people. I love to teach people what I know, because people will remember you for how you impact their life. So I teach people. It's a great future projection. I believe every art piece is a masterpiece, and every masterpiece has a future projections. What is the future projection of an art piece? The longer it becomes, the more valuable it becomes. Like the works of masters like Picasso, Michelangelo. At their time, at their era, the work may not be too expensive, but today it sells in billions in our money. I believe as time goes by, the more I work, the more I exhibit, the more people get to know about me, the more the value begin to rise. An artwork value is priceless. It keep growing, the value keep appreciating, you don't depreciate. That is how I see art. That's how I see mine. Me personally, as an artist in my business, in 5 years' time, by His grace, I see myself being in the next level, being able to touch more lives, train more students, help more people to become self-independent as well. Because what will be of your benefit after you made all the money, you made all the fame, you didn't touch any lives? It would not be good. In the next 5 year times, I see myself being able to touch more lives. I may have trained more students, I may have helped a lot of people to achieve their own goal, to be able to take care of their family too. That is how I see fulfillment. Fulfillment to me is not you having a big car driving all around or living in big mansions. I see myself in 5 years' time, I should have been able to touch more lives, teach more people art, encourage more people to remain in the profession. At the same time, be a mentor to many upcoming artists, a mentor that will guide them to the right path of light. If you want to be an artist, as somebody that want to call me, hey, I want to be an artist, I want to learn to become an artist, the first stage, if you are not privileged enough to go to school, some artists are not, you can work under an artist tutelage to get knowledge of being an artist. After some time, by the time you have mastered the profession, working with a master, you'll be able to sell 1 or 2 works, even though you don't have access to material, to machines. Through that process, you can be buying the utility of your machines and be doing something. But if you have the art of moving to the next level, you can pick a course, have an ND in art, then it's good to go.
The Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove in Osogbo, Osun State, southwest Nigeria, is one of the last remnants of primary high forest in southern Nigeria. The site, a natural habitat that has been preserved for over 400 years, has served as both a pilgrim point as well as a tourist center for millions of people who visit the site annually to worship and celebrate the Oshun goddess that is believed to inhabit the river that runs through the grove, giving the water the ability to heal and grant wishes of its believers.
Oshun Grove happened to be a site that we all refer to as a living site. It's a living site just because activities that have been carried out over the years are still performed the way it used to be then. And secondly, it is a site where the worshippers do come to perform every 5th of the day, which means 5 days. They do come. For example, in churches, we go to churches during the week, but on Sunday, we question it to be, we go to church on Sunday. Likewise, the Muslim goes to mosque on Friday. So, despite the fact that the devotees do come interval, but they have a 5 day, which they call Ojose. Aside this, the uniqueness of this site is the name Oshogbo was derived from this site. The appellation of the king was derived from this site.
From the entrance, one could feel the tranquility that comes with the well-preserved forest. A little further down comes another feeling of an elevated being's dwellings. This is the Oshun Oshogbo Sacred Grove, one of the last sacred forests in Nigeria, along the banks of the Oshun River, just outside the city of Oshogbo, Oshun State, southwest Nigeria. In this forest of 75 hectares of undisturbed areas of land, no residential building is allowed, no killing of any kind of animal, no fishing, no hunting or felling of trees.
Apart the fact that it is 75 hectares of the core zone and 47 hectares of the buffer zone, is one of its kind in sub-Saharan Africa and the second UNESCO World Heritage Site in Nigeria. The kind of people or crowd that comes around, one would be marveled why this. But it is a festival and a river that people believes in. Because of the sacredness, you can't cut a tree, you can't fish. And if you are not a devotee, there are certain activities you don't do so that you don't blame yourself.
The one path that cuts right through the grove is lined on either sides with sanctuaries, illustrations of traditional Yoruba deities and primary high forest. Adekunle Olatunji is the curator and site manager of the grove that has existed for over 4 centuries. On a tour of the sacred forest, Olatunji describes how the name Oshogbo came about and what the grove stands for.
At Ikpole, some kilometers from here is in Iboku. There's an hunter. It's not just an hunter that going to the bush to kill rattle. It's a big hunter that hunts for elephants, bigger animals. In one of his sojourn, then from Ikolemu looking for where they can get water, they now got to this site. On getting to this site, he was astounded. We were looking for almost a 40 kilometers from here, looking for water, still large water here. So he decided to go back to inform the king. My brother, we are hunting, I got to his place and I saw this river. So the hunter then was Oguntimeyin, while the king then at Ikolemu is Laroye. So the two of them came down to the site, seeing what they wanted. So they decided to settle down at the bank of the river. So in one of their trying to rent the tent, a tree now fell into the river. And a voice came out of the river saying, Enyoma darling, you have broken my time, but 84 koku. So everybody the two of them were so shocked. Who is this person? Simultaneously, the spirit now answered, Oshogbo Pele, Oshogbo Rola, Oshogbo Pele, Oshogbo. That was when they knew they are in Oshogbo. Literally meaning Oshogbo. So now, they now felt, what is the next thing to do? In Yoruba then, we something strange happened, you do divination. During their divination, they wanted to know what's happening. So the Babalawo now said, Osun dwell here. You cannot stay with Osun. So they moved from the bank of the river, move up. They now built a hut. That hut today is what we call the first palace. And there's these promises between them that we said we should leave this place. As a powerful person, they felt, how will somebody in the river be telling us to leave? So if we are to leave, what will you do for us? And I said, okay, if you are to leave, I will make you prosper. There is no war that will conquer you. Do my bidding, and every year there must be somebody from your lineage to come and bring object of appeasement to me every year.
But the grove wasn't always this beautiful and serene. In fact, there was a time it was completely infested with termites until an Austrian artist, Susan Wenger, and her husband Uli Bayer arrived to save the sacred monument. Wenger devoted some 50 years of her life to preserving the forest, and with the help of local craftsmen in the city, she transformed the sacred grove into a sculptural garden with compelling artworks and objects of habitation. Because of them, this 200 acres is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
When Mama started with the Osun Groves, she started at the area we called Ayedakun. Ayedakun is also part of the groves. Our first two sculptures are still there, where we have Obatala and Yemo. And she did that, not in one place, at the main shrine, Ebu Yamako, and inside the forest there are the sculptures there that she made. And Mama would do the heart with meditating, like communication with the deity before doing any form of art. And Mama got her inspiration, from there, because she stayed there for a while.
She was invited to come and see or assist us in treating this termite attack. In doing that, she now fell in love with the culture. So she is so powerful and mystic that if she sleeps, revelations of what she is expected to do for this place will come to her. Then she now felt, for somebody of her status, there's a need for her to have people to work with. Then she now got in touch with the Oba. Then there and then some interested indigenous that were into art then were introduced to her. So that was why they formed what we call a new sacred art movement. With this new sacred art movement, from instruction from her, that's why we have all these structures.
Shaded by a canopy of trees with a flight of stone leading downwards, the inner grove lies within a natural depression, marking the exact spot where the first palace of the founder of Osogbo was located. The ancient palace with its ornate pillars and elegant designs has remained in its original state for decades, and its sacredness upheld for as long as it stands. A short walk away from the palace will take you to the Osun River, which on a normal day looks just like any other river except for the utter stillness that pervades the atmosphere around it and the occasional calving in the midst of its waters. Otherwise called the Herbs of Osun, because according to its devotees, this calm flowing river transcends ordinary water.
Everything about the Osun Grove revolves around this river. It's like the life of this place. You take it away, the entire place becomes lifeless. This is where the history of the grove actually started from. And every year, thousands of devotees of the Osun goddess converge by the bank of this river. where they pray, believing that all of their problems will be solved by the goddess.
If it is just a mere river, why the crowd? If it is just a mere river, why are people taking this water? I'm using this water in context because here we don't have river, we don't have water. Please, we don't have water. Once you are here, you want agbo, herbs. People that needed one thing or the other comes here to seek for assistance from Oshun Goddess. Believing, as I said, it's your faith. Believing he or she will do it for them. Whatever is being taken here is herbs, is agbo. If you take it with your faith, be you me, you'll be healed. It has been proven beyond reasonable doubt.
While the grove is the site of Oshun's most sacred shrine, many Yoruba deities are also depicted here with sculptures that are centuries old and shrines where their devotees worship. Despite the sanctity attached to it, managing the grove is not without its own challenges.
There's no lumber that will come into this site that will not pray will sleep off 72 hours. So that before we wake up, we would have cut down all the trees. We do have butchers, and despite the native laws that we do use to operate, because here you are not supposed to hunt. If you are caught, you'll be taken to the enforcement agency through the authority of Osogbo. And because of developmental pressure, as the town grows, you are bound to see people wanting to build closer to the site, thereby giving you problem. You have the challenge, but God is helping us through that native law. That native law, don't cut, don't fish. And aside that, the native law, I will tell you authoritatively, because if all of us goes home, we have night security if they are here. If you eventually decide that you want to catch any fish, you will cook it from now till that kingdom come, it will not done. So you will definitely put yourself into trouble.
Once sparkling and clear and home to a variety of fish, today the sacred river is murky and brown. It is now under constant threat from pollution from waste disposal and other human activities. Another fascinating thing about the grove is the standalone suspended bridge right at the heart of the forest and just above the Oshun River, built some 87 years ago. The bridge has no pillar holding it because they say the Oshun Goddess forbids it.
One of the unique things to see at the Grove is this suspension bridge. We understand it was built in 1935, commissioned in 1936, and the reason why the bridge was constructed was to enable people around here move goods now, especially palm products, from one end of the bridge to the other. And up till this day, the bridge is standing. It's one bridge a lot of tourists who come to this area love to see.
Despite the gradual fading away of celebrated African culture and tradition, the Osun-Osogbo Sacred Grove is one cultural phenomenon that has not only stood the test of time, but also become a reference point for people from this part of the world. The grove remains more or less pristine, leaving visitors with this sense of peace and a connection to the dwellings of an elevated being and the ancient Yoruba tradition.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
Deep inside Ekwe, along the Lagos Lagoon, more than 145 villages are tucked away, far from the bustling city life. Lagos State, a vast expanse of lagoons and creeks with substantial coastal terrain, is both a place of interest and enigma. A beautiful disaster, a seaweed from South America, has taken over the lagoon, stopping life in its tracks. As far as the eye can see, water hyacinths create the sensation of endless green fields peppered with brilliant pink flowers. Women are giving birth depending on nature only, and their children are growing up, waiting for power and education, hoping for the future.
Àmọ́ gbéborùn kò jẹ́ ká jẹun. Àbá síìkì kò jẹ́ ká rí bí jáde. Tó olóyún ó máa ń bímọ sínú ọkọ̀. A lè lọ́jọ́ mẹ́ta ká tó gúnlẹ̀ sí tọ́ọ̀kì. Wàhálà yẹn wá pọ̀ jù. A rí bí jẹ àwọn kọ́sítọ́mọ̀ wa tó bá lọ sí ọ̀sà báyìí a máa gbé oúnjẹ lọ fún wọn lọ́hùn ni. A rí bí jáde. Ó dìtẹ́ẹ̀nì wa nílùú. A rí bí lọ síbì kankan. A dẹ̀ rí iṣẹ́ kankan ọ̀sà là ń ṣe. Iṣẹ́ ọ̀sà là ń ṣe. Ṣé ti yẹn sìn? Ọ̀nà mọ́tò yẹn gangan kán wá bá wa ṣe kọ́dẹ̀ wá bá a la ibi. Kan bá a ṣe títì wa. Bá ti bá a ṣe títì wa, a ní gbádùn.
From Ologbokere to Bodun, Oriba to Ibon. In coastal villages in Ekwe, people urgently need access to healthcare, clean water and sanitation, energy, and the means to ensure their livelihoods.
Omi mímu ó jẹ́ ìṣòro fún wa. Sometimes tá bá máa mu omi àfi ká gbé ọkọ̀ ká cross lọ sí other side láti lọ pọn omi borehole. kí cross sí other side yẹn máa ń dojú kọ water hyacinth tàbá máa cross. Ìgbà míì ẹnu ọmọ mi lè lọ kó já lo 3 hours ní ìrìn tí yóò yẹ kó ju 20 minutes. Tí ilẹ̀ bá ṣú wọn, ẹ̀fọn mosquito ló máa jẹ wọ́n tí ó máa tó wá fa àrùn sí wọn lára. A ò ní hospital tí ìjọba lè fi máa care fún. Ìṣòro ńlá là ń dojú kọ tí àgbàlagbà bá sick, especially tí àwọn obìnrin bá lóyún tán bá máa bímọ. Èmi ọkọ̀ la máa gbé láti bí ká tó dé Èjìrìn, èmi àti bímọ sínú ọkọ̀. Èmi ọmọ ẹ̀ á bímọ tán máa bleed tó jẹ́ pé èmi faint ká tó lè dé Èjìrìn. Àdẹ̀ tí ìrọ̀gbọ́n dá sí di wákàtí ìjọba náà láàyè ń wojú ẹ̀. Àwọn àgbàlagbà wa tán bá ti dàgbà díẹ̀ tó tútù bá ti mú wọn àti gbé wọn hospital náà wàhálà ni. Èmi tó jẹ́ pé ìrìn hospital tí ò jẹ́ kó ju 10 minutes or 15 minutes tó jẹ́ pé òbèlè kenú la máa lò ká tó lè gbé wọn dé hospital. Èmi àti dákẹ́ ká tó dọ̀hún.
Iṣẹ́ ọ̀sà ni ọkọ mi ń ṣe. Àdẹ̀ máa ń ẹja yẹn máa lọ ń tà. So àwọn ìgbébùnrin tó bá ti gbà mí báyìí ó máa ń wùkú wa, àráyè ń jáde. A lè lo 3 days 4 days ní ẹ̀yìn bíbà yìí tá a ní ráyè jáde rárá láti jáde lọ ta àwọn ọjà wa kankan bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣàṣọ ìgbébùnrin yẹn gbogbo wọn iṣẹ́ tá à ń ṣe yìí òun la fi ń ṣiṣẹ́ ń bí la fi ń jẹun. So tí gbébùnrin tá bá tún wá ti lọ dẹ wọn kankan bẹ́ẹ̀ yẹn ó máa ń ba gbogbo iṣẹ́ àwòrán yẹn ó máa ń bàjẹ́ tó máa PCC ẹ̀ òun dẹ̀ la fi ń manage la fi ń jẹun bí. So tá bá dẹ̀ ti pé kankan yẹn bàjẹ́ ṣá àbí kankan bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe sí ìfẹ́fọ̀ láti tí máa wá owó láti tún fi lọ fi ra nǹkan ẹ̀mí. So àwọn gbébùnrin yẹn dẹ̀ máa ń disturb tẹ́ kó máa ń ba nǹkan yẹn jẹ́ tó dẹ̀ máa ń PCC ẹ̀.
Mo jẹ́ ọmọ Ìkòròdú. Mo wá síbí báyìí láti wá ṣe iṣẹ́ apẹja torí wọ́n máa ń pẹja ń lu yìí. Torí ẹ̀ mo kọ́ṣẹ́ mechanic. Mo nídìí owó torí pé iṣẹ́ tí mo kọ́ mo fẹ́ ra irinṣẹ́, mo dẹ̀ fẹ́ ṣe freedom. Torí ẹ̀ mo wá sílùú láti wá owó láti wá ṣiṣẹ́ ọ̀sà.
Nǹkan tí mo rí ìbàyí ni pé bí ìbàyí bó ṣe wà kò sí iná ń bẹ̀. So school tó dẹ̀ wà ń bí ìbàyí náà kẹrì kò tí sí tíṣà púpọ̀ níbẹ̀. Kò sí tíṣà púpọ̀ ń bí ìbàyí school tó wà ń bí ìbàyí. Bẹ́ẹ̀ kẹ́ wọ́n textbook tó máa ń fún wọn ní ìgboro yẹn wọ́n gbé wá sí bí ìbàyí fún wọn student wọn ní bí ìbàyí. Kò dẹ̀ tí wá sí títì kò tún sí omi kò tún sí anything bọ́ọ̀ oríṣiríṣi àwọn bọ́ọ̀ tó wà ní gbòòrò kò sí ní bí ìbàyí. So nǹkan tó ń tẹ́ wa ní bí ìbàyí nìyẹn.
Basic sanitation is absent, since their source of drinking water, the lagoon, also serves as the main conduit for waste disposal.
We need to create a coastal development agency at the level of Lagos State that can look at housing, infrastructure, water supply, health system for these people. We need to make this environment comfortable for these people to live in. Lagos is not just about the central Lagos or metropolitan Lagos. First and foremost, we need a short-term intervention. Government needs to come and reach these people at their health, especially in the area of health challenges, water supply, and schooling. Secondly, as a long term, we need to create a coastal development agency at the level of state to address holistically all the problems encountered by these people.
This project is a call to action to support the sustainable development and human rights of these riverine communities.
I met a friend on Facebook, a Zambian precisely, so we talked about migration, that's me coming over to Zambia for a good job. So I was into fumigation and clothes selling, mobile sales before I left. So when the thought came of relocating to Zambia, when I checked the economy of both countries, I found out that Zambia, though small, but their currency is quite better than Nigeria. Applied for visa, my visa was granted, I purchased my tickets, and then I left. I flew through Kenya Airline. That was on the 1st of June. I arrived Zambia on the 2nd. And then I called this my friend, and I told him I'm in Zambia. So where I was, he moved me to another lodge, a hotel. And that was where I was assaulted by him. He was even dragging my passport. He wanted to get my passport, my yellow fever vaccine card. But because I hid it very far, he couldn't get access to it. He tore my bag, went away with my BTA. It's $885. And then I didn't see him, he absconded. When he left, he didn't pay the hotel bills. He had gone with my money. I couldn't find my money in my luggage. So when I noticed that things were not what we actually planned, I had to become friends with a gardener boy in that hotel. So that previous night, I was asked to move out of the hotel because he didn't pay the bills. But I noticed that he and the receptionist were in good accordance. So I tried asking the receptionist, did that man tell you he was going to come back? He said no, and he's owing for a night, that I can't stay in that hotel. So they had to seize my luggage, seize my properties. I had to look for where to sleep. So that fateful night, I slept in an abandoned vehicle where I was almost gang raped by 3 guys. I had to start this Nigerian movie. I'm with HIV, I'm with this, I'm with that, So you want to, sleep with me and all that. So they made away with my travel documents, my return tickets and all that. They thought it was an envelope of money. So they went with it after tearing my jean and all that. But they couldn't have access to, because I started shouting. That was around 3 o'clock in the morning. I started shouting, creating scenes, so they ran away. When you leave Nigeria, and I left genuinely, but what I proposed wasn't what I got. So it was while I was in Zambia I discovered I was human trafficked. So it's real. When you go, you come back, you're alive, you just say, God, I thank you, and you pick up the pieces of your life and start all over.
Hello and welcome. I am Deji Badimasi. Now, the impact of climate change on our society cannot be overemphasized as we now live with its devastating effect, one of which, of course, is the current flooding now ravaging several parts of Nigeria. To that effect, leaders and stakeholders across the world are currently in the Egyptian city now of Sharm el-Sheikh, attending the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, otherwise known as COP27, to deliberate on how to make progress in terms of zero emissions, improving and, of course, moving away from fossil energy, going towards renewable energy, climate financing, among other things. At the summit, Namibian President Gengo now blamed weather conditions, or wealthier nations, I should say, for the current climate crisis, accusing them of dishonesty in the talks about the fight against climate change. He described the world's largest polluters as criminals, saying the world's poorest nations are their victims. Agreeing with him, the Malawian president on his part says wealthier nations should take on more responsibility in fighting climate change, while their South African counterpart, Cyril Ramaphosa, criticized international funders for making it difficult for poorer nations to access aid to fight climate change. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom, alongside other developed countries, have now pledged monies for adaptation, especially prioritized Africa as the major benefactor. Joining me now to discuss more about the ongoing summit, I have Sulaiman Arigbabu, who is the Executive Secretary of Heather Resource Center. He is actually attending that conference in Sharm el-Sheikh, and that's where he joins us via Skype. Well, thank you very much, Sulaiman, for joining us on the program. You know, the rhetorics we're hearing coming out of COP27 are just the usual rhetorics, if you like. Accusations from developing countries that the developed countries are not doing enough, blaming these developed countries now for being responsible for the effects of climate change in the world, and that they are not providing more money. So it appears at COP27, the narrative is still the same as we had in COP26.
Yes, thank you. The culture, the narrative appears consistent with most international negotiations that involves people living up to their obligations, especially where financial obligations are involved. So COP27 is another big bag about, oh, you're guilty, you are not meeting your obligations and all of that. But while they do that, communities in parts of the world are bearing the brunt. Of course, in Nigeria, you know that some communities right now are still underwater for over a month. And this is not peculiar only to Nigeria, many other communities in the global south. Of course, the impact of climate change is not limited to the global south, but the global south is less responsible for the climate change we're experiencing. And beyond that, they are worse impacted. Nations in Africa are much more vulnerable to realities of climate change than the industrialized nations that have led us to where we are. And beyond being much more vulnerable, we have the least capacity and capability to recover. Our communities find it much more difficult, you know, to recover after every incident of extreme weather event. So whereas it's true that you can have extreme weather events in Australia, in California, in Germany, in London, their ability to recover, their ability to prevent disasters as a result of extreme weather events is much more than anything that we are near. And so this adds to the whole injustice. While we are not saying that their abilities should be reduced, we are saying that it's important to help Africa, to help the global south, to also build those resilient infrastructures, prepare our people, climate-proof our economies, our communities, our systems, our food production systems, our health systems, our educational systems. And in order to do this, finance is at the core of the matter.
Yes, I understand you, but the reason I asked you that question is because one tends to get the impression that you know, that for Africa and of course the global south that you talked about, it appears everything boils down to finance. It's just been finance they've been talking about, and anything other than finance is not getting you know, much of an attention, so to speak. So we have a situation, for instance, where you have countries like the United Kingdom has done now, pledging about 1.5 billion pounds, and then you have the Netherlands now pledging about 110 million euros as well to adaptation projects now, or programs in Africa. But then you also have the United Nations Secretary General saying that the problem may actually not be finance, but that the problem is that there are no bankable adaptation programs in the developing world. How do you reconcile that?
There are no bankable adaptation programs in the developing world. The realities are living with us. You see, there is the dynamics of this conversation goes beyond just the single statement by Mr. Guterres. First, to start with the pledges that have been made. These are tokenism at best. The agreement almost 10 years ago, when the Green Climate Fund came on board, is that we're going to be having $100 billion over a decade, to support adaptation in the global south. How much of that has been, in terms of pledges, not up to 20 billion have been pledged, and in terms of actual manifestation of money, less than 15 billion of that has been realized. So, and when you look at the needs compared to what is being released or what is being pledged, it's a whole gulf. And we are saying that the whole essence of this multilateral process of negotiation is hinged on the convention, that is the UNFCCC convention, that there are climate debt owed, that some people have benefited from where we are at today, and they hold the debt to help others to follow a different path. Now, the implication of this conversation we are having is that because of this attitude of not releasing the money, because of this attitude of tying most monies into investments and profit-oriented interventions, most countries of the global south, especially in Africa, are saying that everything is on the table. The discussions in Glasgow about going back on fossil fuel and not, exploring their fossil fuel is off the table now. Namibia, for instance, is saying we are going to explore our fossil fuel that we have just discovered. Kenya is saying the same thing. Senegal is saying the same thing. So the whole dynamics is shifting. And the implication of that is that if you do not provide the kind of resources needed, and it's not just, it's also about technology. Africa requires the technology, the knowledge. You see, the tragedy of the situation we find ourselves is that not only as African being much more a victim of the climate change that we experience, but Africa is the least to benefit from the opportunity that climate change presents to the world. So at most, what you find in Africa is another round of dumping of product rather than the share of knowledge and technology that can help Africa as a continent to lift itself out of poverty, to build resilient economies and resilient systems, to make our people less vulnerable to climate change. So at best, the pledges that have been made are tokenism. It's a matter of you owe me 1,000 naira and you give me 10 naira as transport fee, or you give me 15 naira to grab lunch. Why don't you give me the money you owe me and let's take it from there?
Well, I'm happy that you did talk about African countries now, pushing the idea of gas as a transition energy. Nigeria, of course, is one of such African countries. Nigeria has made it very clear that gas is going to be its transition fuel. And then it's good that this is happening at a time when we have the Russian-Ukrainian crisis that has caused a lot of disruption across the world. So we now see that even the international community, the West, would appear to be walking back on its zero-emission plan. For instance, you have the European Union lobbying Nigeria and some other African countries to increase gas supply to Europe. And that's understandable because they are trying to win themselves away from Russian gas. So you look at these demands, you look at this idea of gas now becoming the transition energy of especially African countries. I'm just wondering how that would sit, especially with the plan that the plan to achieve say zero emission by the year 2060.
All right, thank you. I mean, it's Nigeria that is saying 2060.
Yes, Nigeria actually.
The global community is saying in 2050. I mean, you see, I'm happy, Deji, that you mentioned this. And this shows you that the conversations at the process are still not equitable, they are not fair, and they are likely hypocritical. What has happened within a year? What has happened from Glasgow when the rest of the world, when the developed world is telling Africa, telling the global south that just energy transition is a must. It must happen immediately. And you find many African NGOs latching on to it. No more fossil fuel. Fossil fuel was brought into the discussion and all of it, which is good. If we must save our. But the reality is that just at the slightest inconvenience caused by the war in Russia and Ukraine, the Western world, the European Union is beating a retreat. Countries are going back to coal.
Well, but they have to survive
They're
first.
asking for more. They're asking for gas supplies from Africa. This is a reality. At the least, and this inconvenience that has brought them to this stage is something that is everyday reality for most Africans. Some of us were saying last year that when you're talking just transition, when you're trying to talk African countries into leapfrogging, into renewables, don't forget that the conversation for the African woman in the village, for the average African man, is existential. It's not a lifestyle change issue. It is existential. It is about how do I make food for my kids? How do I get boiled water, to survive the cold out there? So the conversations are not equal. They are not fair. And just within a year, just one crisis, and you can see that the world seems to be beating a retreat. And when we look at it, what is the contribution of Africa to global emission? It is 3% of global emission. So even if we ignore historical emission and looking at current per capita emission, Africa's contribution to global emission is just 3%. And if Africa were to go ahead and explore and exploit our fossil reserves, our contribution will just go up to 3.4%. So we know where we need to be aiming at when we are talking about cutting global greenhouse emission. It is of those large emitters, those whose per capita emission is more than that of many villages put together in Africa for one person in their communities. So that is where the cut should be, irrespective of the agreement we had in Paris, which African countries are trying to live up to this obligation in bringing on mitigation, that the developed countries are not living to the obligation of helping us with adaptation via funding, via technology transfer, via knowledge sharing. Then I think that the world is not having a fair and equitable discussion.
Well, unfortunately, that's where we just have to leave it. Sulaiman Arugbabu, Executive Secretary of HEDA Resource Center, thank you very much for joining us on the program. And thank you for your time. We would talk to you again some other time so that we can get more updates on this conference that is going on. We wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Well, we'll take a short break now and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Don't go away. We'll be talking politics next. Welcome back. Let's talk some politics now. It appears the crisis rocking the opposition People's Democratic Party, PDP, is not going away. As a matter of fact, there seems to be no end in sight as the aggrieved governors are demanding the resignation of the party chairman, Dr. Iyorchia Ayu, would appear to have withdrawn their support for the party's presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. The 5 governors involved, Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, Okezie Ekpazu of Abia State, Samuel Otom of Benue State, and Ifeanyi Ugwanyi of Enugu State have, as a matter of fact, increased agitations against the presidential candidate for backing the national chairman, Iyorchia Ayu, and they have now formed a group they called the G5. In what appeared to be a formal flag-off of the campaign against their party's candidate, that's their party's presidential candidate now, the governors declared that the efforts to break their ranks were failing because they are bonded to save Nigeria. Now, the G5 also resolved to woo more aggrieved PDP members to their fold from the 6 geopolitical zones to give their onslaught a national outlook and to mobilize to resist what they call the divide and rule tactics purportedly employed by Atiku to destabilize their state structures. The group actually even had a meeting with Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State, who is currently having challenges surrounding his re-election bid in the party. Now, despite all of these moves, Governor Wike has continued to reiterate that there's still room for reconciliation and they are ready for at any day at all for talks and at any time. Now, what does all of this mean for the party's chances in the 2023 presidential election? Well, let's discuss this further. Now being joined on the program by Dr. Kach Ononuju. He joins us from Abuja. Of course, he is one of the spokesperson of the Labour Party, the special advisor, I should say, on public affairs now to the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, that is Mr. Peter Obi. We also have Dr. Bibi Farouk, who is a political scientist. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Dr. Farouk. You look at what the aggrieved governors are doing now. It would appear they've gotten to a stage of no return, if you like, even though the governor of Rivers State continues to maintain that there's still room for reconciliation.
They have always wanted to go on this path, that they have reasons that are not cogent and not really realistic is true, because their issue with having the chairman removed for them to return to the fold has now been destroyed by their argument that they will not support presidential candidate at all. So they were actually all the time after the candidature of Atiku, being so loser as Wike is, having lost the primaries and felt that he had to somehow make it impossible for PDP to win the national election. And that is the direction. They might be finding themselves boxed in corners when they relate back to their local levels where they have the party in their states still being PDP. They don't have accommodation in any other major structure, one of the four major parties. And time is coming to fore, and they do not really have a destination in 2023.
Do you think, Dr. Farouk, okay, Dr. Farouk, do you think this is just a repeat of what we saw in 2015? Because in 2015 too, 5 aggrieved governors actually left the PDP to team up with the APC.
Yes, I think it's nemesis of PDP's zoning formula that is trying to destroy PDP for good. Because the PDP had an understanding in 1998-99, and within the 8 years of Obasanjo, there was persistent pressure that that understanding must be turned into a document of agreement. And a document of agreement on power is a very dangerous document. And PDP went to the extent of putting that agreement into their constitution. And when God intervened and took Eradua, that agreement completely became unviable. And so, whereas the North will be saying they had only 2 years, the South will be saying that under agreement, it is their turn.
Dr. Kach Ononuju, you have left the PDP. You were a very, very staunch member of that party. One of very, very vocal members of the party. Now you have left, you have joined the Labour Party. But then when you hear people like Governor Nyesom Wike saying there's still room for reconciliation, if that reconciliation was to happen, would you want to come back?
Well, thank you. What we are discussing now is the reason why most of us, also known as the Jonathanians in the PDP, have now all moved to the Labour Party. The Labour Party, as it is today, is peopled by up to 80% of the foundational voting bloc of the PDP. How come everybody has moved away? It didn't start with me, don't forget. Governor Kwankwaso moved to the AMPP. Governor Peter Obi moved to the Labour Party. And then those who didn't want to move, like you said now, the 5 governors stayed inside, and they have seen exactly the thing that Kwankwaso and Peter Obi saw, that the party had been hijacked by some people who thought they could go away, like Atiku, who went to Dubai, stayed for 2 years, 8 months, came back. Don't forget, this is Nigerian politics. Atiku led those other people in MPDP to form a coalition with other Nigerians, which bettered the Buhari presidency. So if you now brought Buhari presidency insisting it was the turn of the North, Buhari has now done 8 years. So you must now accept the responsibility of bringing Buhari, a northerner who has done 8 years. That's why the quest by the South to say the national political party clock has given the North 8 years. So mentioning names, party this, party that, is fraudulent. What you look at is Nigeria, and the Nigerian project, no matter the road you take to get to Maiduguri, you have gotten to Maiduguri. If you stay in Maiduguri for 2 years, people will tell you, you've been in Maiduguri for 2 years. You won't claim, no, I went there by plane. I didn't travel there by road. I didn't go through water. No, you have gotten to Maiduguri. And once you're in Maiduguri for 4 years or 8 years, the record will say you have been to Maiduguri, and that's all. So the thing now will come back to Port Harcourt. And that's what you see bringing this crisis.
Right, Dr. Ononuju, when you say the bulk of you have left the PDP for the Labour Party, we can't deny the fact that there's still quite a number of members in the PDP. And you know, I don't understand what you mean by the bulk of you leaving the PDP, because the PDP is still, whether we like it or not, a very strong party and has got quite a lot of members across this country. So maybe just a few of you left to the Labour Party, that would definitely not translate to the bulk of you leaving the PDP.
Well, you are not a member of the party, so you may not understand. While I was still in the PDP, like a lot of us who are still in the PDP, we are obedient. Being obedient does not mean being a member of the political party. I was obedient with others who are still in the PDP, who are still obedient, who have never seen the offices of the Labour Party before. What drove us? When we saw the youths, when we saw the street marches, we simply felt if 72% of Nigeria's voting population, which are the youths, are marching like this, why should we allow it only to benefit just P2B? We said no, all of us are moving there. Secondly, the psychology that actually forced the emergence of that obedient movement, which is some people have actually perfected strategies for state capture. Taken, for instance, Mr. Atiku Abubakar went to Dubai. He lived there for 2 years, 8 months, only to come back to Abuja to use money to buy delegates. Is that the kind of Nigeria you want? No.
Let me go to you, Dr. Farouk. What do you make of this? Because just as I said, it would appear that those who are leaving the PDP for the APC, I mean for the Labour Party now, it would appear it's not just the position of the chairmanship of the PDP, that is the removal, the campaign to remove the chairman of the PDP, that is driving them away.
Was they could not get a presidential candidate from a particular section of the country, specifically the Southeast. They had planned to do this. They had worked, to be honest, for 3 years or for almost 6 years. They were working on holding the party, owning it, and making sure that they produced a candidate from the Southeast of the party. They are convinced that that is the fair arrangement as far as their understanding of politics is concerned. It is supposed to be shared turn by turn according to tribes, regions, or sections. Now, the failure for them to get that, which unfortunately came along with the Electoral Act that did not allow members of the parties who they had cultivated, as officials of the parties, to become delegates, and stood only on elected delegates from local governments, destroyed that arrangement and plan, which they researched perfectly to knowing that once there was an election, officials of the party would be on their side and they would be able to win. Unfortunately, the elected delegates went for Atiku Abubakar, and that has not stopped irking them. And I think if they tell you they are moving to any other place, their major contention with PDP is that primaries. And it is not just about the party chairman. It is not just about any other thing. If you gave them the party chairman, they will still ask for Atiku to sign 1 year tenure. If he signs 1 year tenure, they will still go back to the fact that in what they seem to look at to be fairness in political definition, that Atiku should just not be a candidate of the PDP. That will not go away. Even if they come to negotiate, they will negotiate with that at the back of their mind, that if anything happens, they would not have wanted Atiku to win. But the problem they would have is, even if Atiku loses in the PDP, if they come to get hold of the PDP like they felt they would still find it difficult to present a candidate based on that formula.
Dr. Nonoju, before I lost you, I asked a question that a few weeks ago you were on this program, and then what you told me was that, look, for you didn't have a problem with the candidacy of Atiku, but that you wanted the chairman of the PDP to resign. So when did you now evolve? Because from what you are saying now, it appears you are saying your motivation for leaving the PDP was because the PDP did not feel the candidate from the south of the country, particularly the southeast, and that's the reason you've gravitated. Because just a few weeks ago, you told me that what you were asking for and that you were aligning with these aggrieved governors is that the chairmanship of the party should come to the south.
Good. This is what you have, your statement. Let me tell you my position. My position as at today is that change is the only thing in life that is inevitable. No condition is permanent. I have seen now amongst the all candidates who are available, the best that I can hold accountable is Peter Obi. Atiku and Tinubu connived in 2014 to bring Buhari to power in 2015. All the promises that they gave Nigerians, none of them has been kept. Today, Buhari's government has become not only the most corrupt, it is also the only government involved in ethnic cleansing of Nigerians, not to talk about the wholesale capture of NNPC, where for the past 7 months, nothing, no single naira has been credited by NNPC to the Federation account. And if I now remember that both Atiku and Tinubu connived to bring this man to power, then you should know that I cannot follow them. This is my position today. What I told you before was in regard to the arguments and what it was that the governors were demanding. I am not telling you my own personal opinion. The way I've seen Nigeria right now, the only person who is being followed by all Nigerians due to competence, due to character, due to capacity is Mr. Peter Obi. I don't want to go and start working too hard to convince people. I am happy to join the millions of youths who have made that decision, that of all the people they have seen, this is the only one they can trust. So I am, like you will say, following the flow. I am riding a wave. And since Peter Obi today is the person that has captured the imagination of Nigerians, and the only person that Nigerians think that they can hold on to be accountable.
Let me bring in Dr. Bibi Farouk here. Dr. Farouk, you look at these aggrieved governors, the 5 of them. We cannot say the 5 of them are supporting Mr. Peter Obi. We can't say that. In fact, the Oyo State governor has given the impression that he's supporting the candidate of the APC. And even Governor Wike himself has not come out clear to say which of the candidates now of the other political parties he would be supporting. But do you think if these governors were to pull their weight now behind, let's just say the Labour Party candidate now, that would be enough to propel him to victory in 2023?
Lost some of you, but I had the last part of your question. And, I think politics is about numbers. I think nobody would discard a support base of about 5 governors, especially if he has no governors at all. And the party does not have any state structure, captured or not captured, that is behind its candidate. So, but the possibility of them going in to support Peter Obi, it could be there. They would have their reasons. Wike wanted presidency, despite the fact that the argument was for an Southeasterner in the party. But if he now decides to go for Peter Obi, as at now, none of them has the...
Unfortunately, we're not able to continue. Dr. Kachon Onuju, I want to thank you very much for your time. Unfortunately, we couldn't get Dr. Farouk to continue. So we'll definitely have some other time to talk again. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you for your contributions. I think that's where, unfortunately, we've run out of time. That's where we'll just have to draw the curtain on the program. And so I'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.
The first time I was here to locate the Ghanaian cane weaving community, a Nigerian told me point blank that these Ghanaians will steal my money. I was curious and I wondered why these two nationalities who share same profession would have such level of animosity between them. And I'm here to find out why. If you're familiar with Maryland in Lagos, it is difficult to miss this beautiful display of handmade cane crafts. Beneath the Maryland Bridge, linking the Ojota area of the city, cane-based products such as chairs of all varieties, living room sitters, house decor, as well as baskets of all shapes and sizes are sold here. But behind this lush display of artistic brilliance lies a culture of discrimination against the migrant population of Ghanaian cane artisans, one which has been in practice for decades now. Unlike their Nigerian counterparts, Ghanaian cane artisans are restricted to a remote part of this cane weaving community. So what is the genesis of this unfair practice and why has it been perpetrated for so long? To find out, we paid a visit to Monkey Village, just behind the Maryland cane weaving community where the Ghanaian cane weavers live and work. This is Monkey Village, right here in Mende, Maryland, Lagos, Nigeria. In what appears to be the outback of the area, Ghanaian cane weavers are not allowed to venture beyond these parameters. While Nigerians are allowed to display their products, Ghanaians serve as laborers who manufacture these cane products for a fixed price. 54-year-old Adeyemi Bolarinwa concentrates hard as he weaves this basket. His calloused hands work deftly, and in a matter of minutes, he finishes one of his orders. Bolarinwa's father is Nigerian, but his mother is Ghanaian. Despite his being a Nigerian, Bolarinwa cannot sell his products directly to buyers. He can only sell to a group of Nigerian cane weavers, who in turn sell directly to customers. It's a rule among the Cane Weavers Association here, which restricts non-Nigerian cane weavers from dealing directly with customers.
They brought some job for one Nigerian man, according to the history, from 1986. Then the man delayed the job, and they saw another Ghanaian man. They went to, that's a Sheraton hotel. So they went to the Ghana man. The Ghana man did the thing in time as they want. So the contract go to that Ghana man. So then, now those people are the indigenous work against foreigners that they can share a place together. So the moment they granted that law still will work from 86 up to by this time. So Ghanaians don't have any choice to sell, to meet customers or something like sell in direct. So always we are in backyard that when they receive the order, they come and give us a job. That's the situation where we are facing now.
As migrant workers, Bolarinwa says he and other Ghanaians have no choice than to obey this restrictive rule, so they keep their heads low and make the best of their meager income.
A stranger cannot be like citizen, so we have no choice, and there's no any help. Because if someone came that we want to give you advance, they used to tell the person that this is a foreigner, you to take your money around or something like that. So we have no choice. We are there in panic. And we just manage it because that's a handicraft. That's a hand job. We can't. That's my professional. No, actually, it's my professional. So anyhow, bear it. I'll manage it.
We asked Bolarinwa if the Ghanaian cane weaving community in Maryland had made any attempt to report to relevant authorities. He says no one has come to help despite many complaints.
We used to let people from Ghana embassy to come and interview us at times. But there's no help. There's no help. We try a lot. We joined their group, Nagacon and this and that, but at times, the way the thing they go, we see that there's no help. So the work will be like a struggle, with a struggle for our needs. Anyhow, we manage it and bear it.
It gives further details of the mode of operation between the Nigerian cane sellers and the Ghanaian cane weavers.
We arrange every basket within price, where it's a popular no. Then any quantity where the person want to come and book from you, he can give you advance. Then after finishing the product, we take your balance. That's the way we are going. Then I submit for them, I take my balance. Some people are pay cash, some people can give you in half basis. He can give you advance. When you finish, supply the thing to the who come and done the work with you. Then you take your balance from. We have no chance because there's no shade. He cannot give you, as a foreigner, he cannot give you shade to shade your market. They share by themselves.
Kwaku Noah is another Ghanaian cane weaver in Maryland. For 15 years, Kwaku has struggled to make ends meet due to the trade inequality he suffers.
Maybe the price we are going to sell for woman as this back here. If I did roadside, one day, God goes see me about a better customer where I can sell for the person where I go see gain pass where I did. So it affects us. So if we are on the roadside, I'm sure say we go see better customer pass, better price pass, what we are gaining as the back here.
Fed up with the unpleasant situation, a number of Ghanaian cane weavers have either moved back to their home country or adopted other trades. Now the once boisterous community has become a shadow of itself.
Before, we are more than 20 or 30 people. Right now, I remember maybe roughly, I can say about 5 or 4 people now. We remain. Before we are more than 37, but things know the balance. And then, they get in assist to support the work. Everything I'm money now, so if you know, get any way to get something assist your business, you can go forward. So right now, I know they're easy for us. As you can settle another side like that, it's money, because to get a place to stay, it's money, but how to money no day on hand like that.
To confirm these allegations and to understand the root cause of the act of discrimination against the Ghanaian cane weavers in Maryland area of Lagos, I paid a visit to the chairman of the Cane Weavers Association in Maryland, Dennis Omadide. Surprisingly, Omadide confirms everything we've heard from the Ghanaian cane weavers. He explains that the Ghanaians are restricted for 2 major reasons. They work fast and they charge less. These 2 factors, he says, could disrupt the profit margins of Nigerian artisans.
To make the market so polluted, that's what I mean. But they produce fast. They produce fast. So by the time you are trying to draw a kind of item that will come to market, it's like this. Then when they overflow, then that market will not depreciate on that area. the reason why we do that, then they are trying to frustrate the market in terms of sales in the beginning. So that's why we notice that instead of that to happen, let us stay on their own, then we should stay on our own.
Omadide says while the migrants are not allowed to mix with Nigerians and display their trade, they are however free to establish their business in other locations.
That is the normal procedure, the constitution, what we have. That when they come, they will work for us. We normally collect basket from there to sell to our customer. So we don't want them to close to us in that way. It's like they will know how much we are selling to the other. So that is why they not do it. But now, it is old. For now, they have assets free, direct to customer. But they are not the midst of us here. Some day for Abalikoro, some day at Tony Down. That is how.
So whose responsibility is it to protect the interests of Ghanaians in Nigeria? We had requested an official response from the Ghanaian consulate in Lagos to find out if the mission is aware of the discrimination and what it is doing to stop the menace. TV360 Nigeria did not receive an official response from the Ghanaian consulate, but in a meeting we had with the Consul General, Senator Gifty Bukari, key officials of the consulate, the president of the Ghanaian community in Lagos, Augustine Appiah, as well as the Ghanaian cane weaver, Charles Sapong. It appears the consulate is aware of the problem, but may not want to ruffle any further. I'm just coming out from a meeting with the Ghanaian Consulate General, Senator Gifty Bukari, who appeared irate about a request for an interview, especially the part that spoke about publishing the findings of this investigation with or without an official response from the consulate. Now the Consulate General declined to give an official interview on what she's doing to ensure that Ghanaian cane weavers in the Mende area of Lagos are not discriminated against. Now, our phones were confiscated and we are not allowed to take any recordings. As the second largest country with a migrant population of over 1.3 million, Nigeria has a national policy to address labor migration issues. Page 21 and 22 of the National Policy on Labor Migration clearly states that migrant workers have the right to negotiate by collective bargaining, enjoy freedom of movement, as well as upholding equal treatment and non-discrimination regardless of migration status. But it appears some Nigerian businesses are not willing to accommodate migrants. Director General of Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, Nasima Shola Obadimu, says the unfair treatment of Ghanaian cane weavers is nothing short of bullying.
It's just a case of bullying. It's to some level a case of harassment. You know, even within the Nigerian environment, you can open a shop and start selling pepper, and the second day some people will come to you that they want to seal your shop.
So is there any law in Nigeria limiting the trading activities of migrant workers in Nigeria?
We have this ECOWAS treaty that encourages free movement of goods and services within the West African sub-region. So for West African nationals, they can do their business freely. We have Nigerians doing businesses all along the West African coast. So if they are West African nationals, they can do their business. So far it is a legit business, and when they are operating within the laws of Nigeria, they are free citizens.
Sadly, the problem of discrimination of migrant workers is not peculiar to Nigeria alone. There have been documented cases of discrimination against Nigerians in Ghana, xenophobic acts against other Africans in South Africa, and the general attitude of hostility against Africans, which experts say has affected the social, political, and economic cohesion of the continent.
As a Nigerian, if I'm heading up to Ghana, there's this orientation, European orientation, that yes, I'm heading up the north of Africa. So they don't see this whole reality of trade between borders and trade within African countries. They just see everybody as a suspected migrant, as prospective migrants. So heading up to Ghana means you may be heading up further to Mauritania or that to Libya or Morocco, such thing. So and in this whole situation, people are made to be criminal, made to appear like criminals, because the moment you go across the barriers, the borders, and then you are not with the right documents, so to say, then you are seen as a criminal. And being a criminal means, yes, you are being identified as somebody who is illegal. And then you can see from this perspective, when one migrant does something that is wrong, so it is tied to a lot of other migrants at the end of the day. So we have this whole problem in the world now where we prejudice, or we just wrap up figures to say when one person is bad, the first person you meet at the end of the day, you just wrap up his tribe to be part of this whole problem.
They are worse affected because they are not captured and documented. So their country is not aware they are here, and our country is not aware they are here. I mean documentation-wise. Okay, so people like that will hardly go to the embassy to make reports or report to the Nigerian authority. Most times they will look for a way to manage the situation for as long as they can before they leave. So what can be done is that it goes back to the same point I made before, that our orientation agency, you understand, must make sure that they talk about these things. It's not talked about.
Bolariwa and Kweku may have resigned to fate and lost all hope of ever competing fairly with their Nigerian counterparts, but these talented cane weavers hold on to the dream of returning to their homeland someday, where they can live and work freely without fear or discrimination. Folashade Ogurinde, TV360 News.
You can't travel on a wrong road for too long and expect to arrive at your destination early. Nigerians rode to nowhere. In 1999, after a windy period of military rule, Nigerians celebrated the advent of democratic governance, hoping that Obasanjo will bet the beginning of a new and prosperous Nigeria. Unfortunately, the long military rule, coupled with most military personnel who transmutated from military to civilian rule, created a military mentality that made Obasanjo turn himself into a headmaster, who treated the governors as errand boys who could be whipped into line for disagreeing with the headmaster, using state apparatus like EFCC, while corruption went on unabated. At the end, funds were wasted until date unaccounted for on a failed third-term bid. Umaru Musa Yar'Adua was subsequently promoted as president, and Nigerians celebrated the election of a graduate for the first time, even though he agreed that the election that brought him to office was far from free or fair. But he didn't last, and you don't want to go into the political intrigues until Goodluck Jonathan was allowed to come on board. In 2011, Nigerians again celebrated the election of a PhD holder as a president who claimed he had no shoes. But in 2015, after the man obviously have had some shoes, Nigerians wanted anybody but Jonathan. Away with his PhD. Even if it's a toilet paper certificate, we don't mind, they say. This ineptitude and incompetence was getting too much. But came Buhari, a retired general, with his anti-corruption stand and his mantra to fight insecurity to a standstill. And like others before him, promised to turn the state into the fastest growing economy in the world with massive infrastructure. Unfortunately today, Nigerians are rather leaving their own country massively as a result of insecurity, lack of basic infrastructure, inefficiency, ineptitude, and gross incompetence. Yet, with the 2023 election fast approaching, Nigerians are yet again building hopes on the same political parties and candidates who will still overpromise and deliver nothing, not because they don't want to, but because they are handicapped by the the constitutional structural defect of the country. You can't run a car on diesel and expect it to move like a car who's running on gasoline or fuel. It's not possible. Nigeria is a country with a federal constitution but managed as a unitary system. Yet, the people blindly expect election to bring them development. No be juju be that. No wonder governors like Ben Ayade, Godwin Obaseki, Nyesom Wike and co. during election can hawk appointment of special advisors on a tray like someone hawking akara, appointing almost every youth in the state as SA, yet have no sustainable development plan for creating gainful employment or creating a thriving business, private business climate that can create jobs for such youth. Even as funds are allegedly laundered through this SA appointment process, yet nobody is worried. Yet, we must all get fixated at the center. Look at all the states of the major contenders, Adamawa, Anambra, and Lagos. None of them can boast of a public pipe-borne water. Yet we are shouting, go and verify. I created Lagos, or I will unify Nigeria. We never start. There's second base, Jerry. Countries only develop when they domicile infrastructural development in the hands of the managers at the local level, except in the case of a dictator. Or maybe after the presidential election, we're expecting a dictatorial president. We have to create stronger federating units where the likes of Peter Obi can be free to harness the resources of the East to turn the region into a productive economy as against a consuming one, without anyone from other regions bothering to go verify. Or where Bola Ahmed Tinubu can use his leadership experience to synergize the resources in the West and create a sustainable economy for them without him convincing other region that it is his turn. And Atiku can then be free to not only unify the entire North against insecurity, hunger, and banditry, but harness the potential daring for sustainable prosperity without being afraid of a Governor Wike's threats. The region can then contribute to a weaker center for the benefit of the weaker units and protection of our territorial integrity. I will therefore advocate that Nigeria as presently constituted is not working, and no matter who wins the election, with the current constitutional structure, it can never move forward or bet a future of our dream. The earlier we collectively realize that we have traveled on the wrong road for too long and must halt our trip and redirect our coexistence before proceeding on the next journey, the better for all of us. Failure to do this, we will soon realize that after the election, that the various agitations from the federating region may have been suspended for the election and will be renewed with greater strength and vigor after the election, no matter the outcome of the election. For example, if Igbo win, the North and the West will start their own agitation. If the West win, the East will renew their own agitation for Biafra. And if the North wins, then the entire East and West agitation might crumble the country. I am not a prophet of doom, but that is just the reality of our future based on the constitutional road we dey travel now. Well, not everyone agrees with me though, but you can share your own thought with us by following us on all our various social media platforms shown on your screen, and also share your thoughts on previous episodes. Remember, the most difficult person to wake up is he who is pretending to be asleep. We all know it is not working, but we pretend that one person can change it. Make we dey deceive ourselves. See you next week.
What we really go through is not really meant for humans, because when you're there, like in a small room whereby you maybe like people of 10 people should be in, you come across like 100 people in a particular small room, and when you want to sleep, you have to sleep with your side. Everyone sleeps on sides. You understand? So there is no more space, and you want to ease yourself or make use of the toilet. It's just in front of you, so you can inhale the odor of the toilet, which is not conducive for the human health. So, and apart from that one, the weather is very, very cold, extremely cold, and at night, you don't have something like blankets that will be given to you. So it's not really good for the body, to be precise. And in terms of feeding, you're being given just a long bread. We call it hamsa. Just a long bread. That's your meal. They'll give you three of it. That's your meal for your lunch, your breakfast, and your dinner, which is not healthy at all. I was deported, and I was deported back to the border of Algeria and Mali. Okay, so when we were deported there, it was a Sahara desert, to be precise. That's where they will leave you. And when they leave you in that border between Algeria and Mali, you have to walk 7 kilometers to the border of Mali, and we call that 7 kilometers to hellfire because it's extremely hot over there. Some of them you were not really giving food well when you were in the camp. You don't have the strength to even walk. Some of them died along the way. Some of them, I'm not going to lie you, have to drink their own urine just to survive, to have strength to be able to go to that next borderline of the Algeria. So it's really, really hectic. You have to make a choice to go back to Algeria, or you have to go back to Morocco. And when you're being taken to the border of Algeria, the Algerian militants, they open fire on the militants of the Moroccans. So they don't have to hide. Or they can just tell you, okay, just go this way, just go down the valley, just stick like this. That is Algeria. So if you want to go back to Algeria, you now have to surrender yourself to the militants of the Algerians. They will not put you into a deportation camp. They do not have to deport you back to Mali. So it's like you're being deported from one country to another. And you can imagine the shape of the deportation camp in Mali there. It is, oh God, it's unexplainable. I believe, I won't lie, I believe I spent 16 years in this journey. On transit,
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal. How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, and use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Hello and welcome to the program. I am Deji Bademersi. Now, it appears there's no end in sight to the crisis rocking the opposition People's Democratic Party PDP, as the aggrieved governors demanding the resignation of the party chairman Iyorchia Ayu seem to have withdrawn their support for the party's presidential candidate Atiku Abubakar. The 5 governors involved, Governor Nyesom Wike of Rivers State, Seyi Makinde of Oyo State, Okezie Ekpazo of Abia State, Samuel Otom of Benue State, and Ifeanyi Ugwuanyi of Enugu State, have, as a matter of fact, consistently distanced themselves from the Atiku Abubakar campaign. In what appeared to be a formal flag-off of the campaign against their party's candidate, the governors declared that the efforts now to break their ranks were failing because they are bonded to save Nigeria. The G5, as they call themselves, also resolved to woo more aggrieved PDP members to their fold from the 6 geopolitical zones to give their onslaught a national outlook and to mobilize to resist what they call the divide and rule tactics purportedly now employed by Abubakar to destabilize their state structures. That's the party structures in their state. The group actually even had a meeting with Governor Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State, who is currently having some challenges surrounding his re-election bid in the party. Now, despite all these moves, Governor Wike has continued to reiterate that there is still room for reconciliation and that the presidential candidate, as a matter of fact, has actually welcomed that development. Now, we just wait and see how it all plays out. So what we're seeing at the moment is that these G5 governors are blowing hot and cold at the same time. So what exactly is going on? Let's discuss this further. I have Jide Ojo, who is joining us from Abuja. He's a political affairs analyst. And joining us from Kano is Dr. Bibi Farouk, who is a political expert as well. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Dr. Farouk. In one breath, these PDP, the aggrieved governors now would appear to be trying to expand their course to get more governors, if possible, or more high-profile members to join them. But in another breath, they are also saying the door is still open for a reconciliation. What's your take on that? How do you see that?
Well, I think it's politics. It's always like that in politics. You don't close all the doors. You try as much as possible to leave some doors open, left for whoever you're contending with to be able to engage. But the reality of the matter is this set of governors, the 5 G5 governors, go into hallucinations and then come back to realities and go back into hallucinations and then return back to realities. Their reality is they belong to the PDP. They have not merged with any party. There is nothing for them to benefit in being members of any party at the moment. None of them can get an elective position. Most likely they will lose some of the people they have contesting under the PDP if they fight against the PDP in their states. And they, at the same time, have not come back to PDP to accept the reality that there has been primary election and the winner has emerged from the primary election. And the process of that primary election cannot be challenged. And now they tend to now stay back to argue on the removal of the national chairman based on a statement made by the national chairman. But the truth of the matter is, would you blame Atiku for the statement of the national chairman? The national chairman was virtually a product of this G5 group. They got together to make sure that the entire ESCO and NWC of the party was in their own making while the elections were going to happen. So most of them went on consensus and concessions to them. So now they are not getting what they want. They fall back to saying the national chairman should go. If they want the national chairman should go, I don't think it is Atiku's business. They, in reality, actually are still sore from the defeat of Wike during the primaries. And as things continue to unfold, many of them might begin to lose their relevance because, like it or not, those of them that are not contesting again, that are not incumbents, would not have total control of the party in their states. And like it or not, the PDP will have a chunk, then they could have the chunk, and an opposition party in their states will have a chunk. And no matter what happens, they might not achieve in precise manner what they want of defeating the PDP in their states even.
Let me just quickly come in there. What do you make of their seeming effort now, so to speak, to try to get more members to join their fold? For instance, they are reaching out now to the Bauchi State governor. You're quite right. The Bauchi State governor was with them at some point, but He's no longer with them, at least openly, but now they are trying to reach out to him to get the Bauchi State Governor to join their fold. And obviously it appears they are making efforts as well to get some other high-profile members of the party to join them. And I'm wondering, they are also saying they are open to reconciliation at the same time. So if they are making this effort to get more members to join their fold, what do you think that portends for the PDP? And do you think they can succeed?
Well, it is possible that they could get, and it is in their interest that at least they get a governor from the upper north or Atiku's area who would be in their support. Because if they don't do that, it still remains the weaker factor of not accepting an Atiku defeat. And not every politician would go with that. I assure you that people like Bode George support them, but will not go to the extent that they want to go. People who believe it is time for the South, like UK is arguing, not the Southeast as he's arguing, but the South, would want to go with them, but they will not want to go to the extent they are going. But even the extent they are going could still be harmful for the PDP. They could still make the PDP lose elections, and it would be a tragedy that PDP that brought in zoning in order to be able to continue to win elections forever is having zoning make it lose elections forever. Because in 2015, when Atiku and the rest moved a group of governors out of the PDP, it was because of the zoning issue. Today, it is also the argument of zoning. So while a group of the North will always be arguing that it is we have only had 2 years or 3 years out of 23 years, another group will be saying that as far as agreement is concerned, it is our turn, whether you had 1 year or no years at all. So would that be able to be a political platform for anybody to continue to build and win elections? I don't think so. Okay. So I think zoning that was engraved and as agreement is going to put PDP to the graves.
Okay, let me bring in Jide Ojo here. Jide, you look at what is going on. You look at these 5 governors. I mean, it must be pretty difficult. Things must be pretty difficult for the governorship candidates the governorship candidates of the PDP now in those states. I'm just wondering how difficult it would be for them to navigate this crisis, because I mean, they are being brought into a crisis that is probably not their making. Just recently, we saw the governorship candidate of the PDP in Abia State, for instance, hold audience now with the Atiku Abubakar campaign. And then I'm talking about the governorship candidate of Abia State now, pledging support for the presidential ambition of Atiku Abubakar. And then you have his, well, whether you call him his boss or whatever, the governor, not in support of Atiku Abubakar. So I'm just wondering how difficult you think this will be for the various candidates now, especially of these 5 states whose governors are completely. Of course, you have one governor who is obviously seeking re-election. That's Governor Seyi Makinde. But then you look at the others; they're actually not coming back.
Yeah, you are very right. But my own reading of the whole thing is, as is popularly believed, politics is a game of interest. There is no permanent friendship or enmity in politics, but interest. And it is the interest of these 5 governors that they are trying to protect. They want to remain relevant after the 2023 elections. And as to your concern about the PDP candidates in those states, again, it's a catch-22 situation. Luckily, we are going to be having national elections before the state elections. So if, peradventure, Atiku Abubakar wins on the February 25, 2023 presidential election, the governors of the governorship candidate of those 5 states will be on a very better footing on March 11, because, as you know, people want to gravitate towards the party at the center. So if Atiku was able to defeat Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu on February 25th, then it will boost the chances of the PDP governors in all the 36 states actually, and not only in the G5 states. So and we still like about 100 days to the next election. To that extent, a lot can still happen. 24 hours is a lot of time in politics. It's all about what, Deji, my reading of this whole thing is just like, you call a dog a bad name in order to hang it. Oh, Ayu must go. Ayu said he will relinquish position. But these are the same G5 governors that brought Ayu in the first place and cleared every opposition for him, made him a consensus candidate because they felt if they have Ayu there, the chances of the power being zoned, the presidency being zoned to the south and perhaps southeast will be enhanced. Unfortunately for them, and the other thing that came to mind is that, remember, is Samuel Otom, the governor of Benue State, who happens to be the home state of Iyorchia Ayu,
yes,
that even headed the committee on zoning for PDP after the emergence of Iyorchia Ayu. And it was his committee, it was Samuel Otom's committee that actually recommended that the game should be thrown open, that there should be no zoning for 2023 election. Had it been that Samuel Otom's committee had insisted power should come to the south, and it is adopted and ratified by the National Working Committee and National Executive Committee of PDP, we will not be in this coup d'etat. So these people, you cannot bring a ant-invested firewood from the farm and then complains that you are being visited by lizards. These people brought this upon themselves because of their own selfish interest, actually. Because what Wike thought was that if Ayu becomes the national chairman, then following the zoning principle of PDP. The likely the presidency will be zoned to the south. If it is zoned to the south, he has the war chest, the resources, enormous financial resources to buy his way through to get the nomination of PDP. And you could see that he and his former boss, Rotimi Amechi, it was like a tug of war between them. Amechi wanted to be the president under APC. Wike wanted to be the president under PDP. And it was at some point looking like Wike had an upper hand until he was defeated in that presidential primary of PDP. Since then, there have been no love lost. But this is also about relevance post-2015, post-2023. They want to be relevant. They want to plant their own stooges in the party structures so that for those, Samuel Otom wants to come to the Senate. Seyi Makinde is seeking re-election. Ikpeazu wanted his anointed candidate to win so that he continued to superintend. And you could also see the effort of Wike by appointing 200,000 aides, or what he calls special assistants, under his stomach infrastructure policy. He also wants to leverage, he wants to maintain a stranglehold on PDP in Rivers State, so that his own anointed candidate also wins. He becomes a godfather and then will be dictating the pace of politics in Rivers State.
Let's quickly take a short break here. We'll come back to continue this discussion. You stay with us. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Opinions are free. Facts are sacred. The truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians are saying in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible. A future is possible.
We delve into the issues Dissect it so that you can understand it. Use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back, and I still have Jide Ojo with us, and of course, Dr. Bibi Farouk in Kano. Let me come to you, Dr. Farouk. How bad is it that, or how bad will it be if Atiku goes to the 2023 presidential election without the support of these 5 governors? Do you think he stands any chance to win the election without the support of these governors?
I think the PDP is in a very bad state of going into a federal election right now. Take the wiki factor of 5 governors. The NNPP of Rabiu Konkoso was part of PDP. It moved out much earlier, sensing this kind of commotions would continue because it's like a continuation of what has become PDP politics. And Peter Obi was also part of PDP. He also moved out, sensing this kind of commotion at the very last minute. And you can see that all of them have credible holding of some parts of the polity. In the north at the moment, you can only contest with the NNPP. And in the southeast, you can only contest with Labour Party. You know, then there's this internal wiki issue that they have not left for another party. They have not joined either the APC or someone. So you see that PDP in an opposition level is facing a lot of dissolution, kind of like it is being disintegrated to some extent. It got disintegrated by 5 governors and Atiku Abubakar in 2015 while it was in power and ended up losing power. So if you look at the circumstances, the only positive thing for them is the performance of the APC. That is nothing to hold on to, nothing to talk about. Had the APC been done well, then you would not even be thinking of PDP coming anywhere near elections. So the failure of APC has created relevance for NNPP, relevance for Labour Party, and at the same time, some relevance for what remains of the Atiku group in the PDP. So this is, I think, the proper scenario of how we are going to go into 2023 elections. The parties are going to have large chunks of certain areas. We might not probably have a very strong dominant one party that people argue, and I do agree that we might likely end up with a runoff, because I do not see any of the 4 parties having control of 24 states, even 25% of 24 states at the moment. So the PDP should really look in. Now, getting these 5 governors back would be a plus, but it is not also going to be as good and united as if they had never objected or had never gone out. Because in politics, this effort still remained recorded, and they know it. That even after elections, if PDP happens to win election, it will take note of the actions of Wiki and these 5 governors in the process of winning that election. If PDP loses, it will blame it squarely on Wiki and the governors. And Wiki and the governors might feel elated for a period of time that they had succeeded in what they want, but it is kamikaze politics they are playing, because they are using themselves to hit PDP and do self-destruct for all of them. And that because even if they end up getting their governors as they think, governors do not stay with their principles for more than 3 months. The average period is about 3 months period, and everybody finds its way. The greatest enemies they might have are these people they are fighting for now. You know, so I think it's a very dicey situation. But the general politics of no one party really being dominant is what should excite all of us. And I think it's showing itself very clearly.
All right, Jide Ojo, do you get this sense that Atiku should do everything he can to ensure he gets this 5 governors back to his fold? I mean, so that he can get their support going into the 2023 elections. And do you think that is even possible at this point?
Atiku has done all he could. Remember, there was a Fintiri committee, Amadu Fintiri committee that has been liaising, meeting with the Wike group. But you see, you need to be very careful the commitments and pledges you are making to a person like Wike and his team, because these people are insatiable. You concede one thing to them, they demand for more. And like Dr. Bibi Farouk said, at the best of time, PDP is not healthy going into 2023 election. How do I mean? They've not been able to poach governors to join them. Today, even if we cede the victory of PDP in Osun to him, I mean, if we take the addition of Ademola Adeleke as the governor of Osun, which will be inaugurated on the 27th of this month, APC will still be in control of 21 states. And the governors, as we know, provide the logistics for election, both financial and otherwise. So if APC governors are willing and ready to work for Jagaban and put the interest of APC first beyond ethnicity, religion, and region, APC, as bad as they have performed in governance, may still retain the seat of the presidency in 2023. Now look, how many governors does PDP have? That 5 is already kicking. So you have barely 11 or thereabout, because out of 36, one is controlling 21. Yes, 21. Another is controlling one state, that is 22. So you have 14 governors. Out of these 14, 5 of them are not with you. So you are left with is it 7 or 8 now to go into the election with. So what magic do you want to perform that will make you to be victorious on the first ballot? So whether the all 14 PDP, and don't mark you, Wike's camp or Seyi Makinde's camp and that of Ademola Adeleke in Osun are not together. Recall that during the grand finale of the PDP primary in Osun, ahead of that governorship election, Seyi Makinde was not there, Wike was not there. Only Ayu and a handful of other governors outside of the region were there. So it shows that there is even infighting in the Southwest PDP. And today, if Seyi Makinde and Ademola Adeleke, who are now going to be PDP governor in the Southwest, do not see eye to eye, how do they want to work for the party?
Well,
so there's a lot of issues to deal with in terms of the prognosis for 2023. I wrote in my column in Punch a couple of days ago that the 2023 election might not most likely be won on the first ballot. And my own projection is that NNPP will come forth, and because there will be, if there is a runoff, then every one of them will want to woo the NNPP to get its support base, which will likely be in the north.
But another thing, you still cannot rule out the possibility of even the NNPP, forming an alliance now before the election. So we just have to wait.
It's a possibility.
Because it's not impossible. It's not impossible. Because listening to the presidential candidate of the NNPP, you tend to get the impression that at some point, probably before the election, we might see something dramatic. But we just have to wait and see what happens and how it plays out. But let me just say thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming on the program. Dr. Bibi Farouk, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for making it as always. And Jide Ojo, you've always been on this program. Thank you so very much for your time. Thank you so very much. Well, we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be discussing environment issues. We'll be looking at the COP27 going on in the Egyptian city of Sharm el-Sheikh. Stay with us, don't go away.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the president of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians have said in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Now, political leaders, climate experts, and advocates across the world are currently in the Egyptian city of Sharm el-Sheikh attending the United Nations Conference on Climate Change, popularly known as COP27. They're deliberating on how to make progress on zero-emission targets set in previous conferences, improving and moving away from fossil fuels towards renewable energy, climate financing, among others. Now, things are really heating up at the summit as expected. Developing nations are making a very strong case for payments for, quote, loss and damage of the effects of climate change from developed nations now, who they accuse of being the sole reason for the situation. But then the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, on his part, is advocating bankable projects to help African countries access climate adaptation finance. Meanwhile, the United Kingdom, alongside other developed countries, have now pledged monies for the adaptation and especially prioritized Africa as the major benefactor. But again, these are just pledges. Previous funding pledges are yet to be met or redeemed, if you like. So it's difficult to tell if this would be any different at all. Let's discuss this further now. Sulaiman Arigbabu is the Executive Secretary of HEDA Resource Center. He joins us from the venue of COP27 in Egypt. HEDA, by the way, stands for Human Environmental Development Agenda. I also have Desmond Majekodumi, who is an environmentalist and a passionate climate change advocate. He joins us from the Nigerian commercial city of Lagos. Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming on the program. Let me start with you, Sulaiman, in Egypt. Bring us up to speed now with what exactly is happening at that conference.
Okay, thank you, Deji, and greetings to our viewers. So right now, the negotiation is starting to get pretty serious. Because that will be going on now till the end of the COP, but probably even if it enters into an extension. An agenda has been agreed before by Saturday, and by Sunday, the COP started officially. There have been negotiations on the terms, there are consultation sessions. That sits on the part of the official events at the COP. However, on the part of other learning opportunities, learning events, bilaterals are also going on. I wish to quickly raise an issue, though,
Yes.
which is not part of the formal conversations, but which is a growing concern, amongst observers and civil society, and that is the condition present at the current city where this COP is being held.
That's
This
Sharm el-Sheikh.
has turned out to be the most prohibitive, the most expensive experience, for people attending the COP. The cost of living here is extremely high. And yes, of course, Sharm el-Sheikh is a tourist city. So one expects, the measure of things being more expensive than other parts of Egypt. However, there is a marked increase in the cost of hotels and feeding and stuff from previous months to now. So unfortunately, it appears that the government of Egypt did not pay attention to this, because the implication of this is that Many COP attendees who were initially built to stay for 2 weeks have had to leave. This means that the space for civil society in participation is being closed up. This means that the space for African countries who might not be able to have large delegations is being closed up. So you are finding a situation where people who are here on official business, people who are here as observers, are having to cut short their trip, restricting it to just the first week. Yet the main negotiations, really, the high-level negotiations, really takes place in the second week. So this is worrisome, and we need to state this because the next COP is happening in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai, and that's a much more expensive city.
Yeah, I guess the Egyptian government is trying to make as much money as it can from this. I mean, when you consider what the Egyptian economy is going through, then maybe this would make some economic sense. But let's just leave that aside now. Mr. Maja Kudumi, you've been following the debates at COP27. We're beginning to see a familiar line, if you like, this line of the developing world now accusing the developed world of not doing enough in terms of adaptation and mitigation, financing, especially here in Africa. President Buhari, for instance, put out an opinion piece in the Washington Post where, for instance, he said, look, way back in 2009, the developed world pledged about $100 billion to support adaptation programs or projects in Africa. But as we speak today, those pledges have not been redeemed. And now we're having new pledges. So clearly, it appears African leaders are frustrated with the fact that the developed world are not meeting their pledges now as far as funding climate projects now in Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just a symptom of the overall problem that brought humanity here in the first place. Brother Suleiman is indicating another small aspect of it. We have to commercialize. People are coming to our city, make pledges, a whole lot of blah, 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 blah. And whilst under different kind of circumstances, this is acceptable. But when you have a situation that has been referred to by the Secretary General of the United Nations as we're inside a vacuum heading straight towards climate hell, and we still have our foot on the accelerator, or his previous statement, mankind is waging war against nature, and this is suicidal because nature always fights back. And we're still having these blah, blah, and all these pledges. It's a symptom of the overall problem, which is actually, we humans. In this case, bringing across the climate change. Obviously, it's the Western industrialized world that is more guilty of having done that. But it's a problem that goes across humanity, that you don't have enough care and compassion for each other. You don't have enough love in your heart for your brethren, that you will continue to pursue relentlessly this situation that, according to Al Gore, turns the atmosphere into just one big sewer. How can you turn the atmosphere of planet Earth, the only planet that we know of amongst the millions of planets that can actually support life, okay? And the main reason why it can support life is because of the way that the atmosphere has been so meticulously and scientifically.
Sorry to interject, sir. But let me ask you, in your opinion, do you think the West, who, as you have pointed out, the guilty party here, especially when you consider our carbon footprints now, you consider the emissions now, and you're quite right, the West is just the guilty party here. The developed world, let me just put it that way, because we also have China there in between and then Japan. So, but do you think they're doing enough to help Africa deal with the consequences of climate change?
They're not doing enough at all. And part of the problem is that, and I've had it from direct information that, hey, if we even bring the money out and we give it to one of these African governments, where will the money end up? with mansions in Dubai and houses here and there, the amount of corruption that's going on in so many of the African governments, as we know, it's not a hidden thing. We know, so there's also that challenge. And that's why the NGOs like Suleiman's NGO, the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, and other good NGOs are trying to create a strategy whereby they shall be monitoring bodies so there will be no excuse. No, the West is not doing enough. They haven't done enough. They've known for decades that, putting all these millions and millions of tons of these toxic gases into the atmosphere. Look, this is a divine, it's a turning point for humanity. If we continue this way, do you know how many? Can you imagine 1 billion refugees? Yeah. And that's only in about 10, 15 years old. And in another 20, 30 years, it becomes unstoppable. The process has gone too far for too long. And we have to change our attitudes. And this is basically what nature is saying. And I'm hoping that at least the nations will come together and ensure that we get what's necessary from the so-called developed nations.
Well, Sulaiman, now listening to the Secretary General of the United Nations, it would appear he basically said what Mr. Maja Kodumi has actually alluded to in terms of corruption now, that look, when they bring the money, where would it go to? So when you hear the UN Secretary General, for instance, say there are no bankable projects in Africa, no bankable adaptation projects, to fund. What does that tell you?
That's the line that we should not even talk about. You see, when we talk about climate justice, the reality is that the world is not serious, like Mr. Desmond have said. The world is not serious to deal with the issues of climate change. And the good thing about climate change is that it's no respecter of class, is no respecter of boundaries. So we're all in this sinking boat together. Either we deal with it or we perish with it. And when the likes of Mr. Ban Ki-moon says that there are no bankable projects, I believe, I'm sorry, Mr. Guterres, yes. The current Secretary General, Guterres, when he says that, I believe that he's saying that in the context of financing that comes through investment. And of course, investors will not just push their finances into anything. They want to see that, okay, this has a good chances of success. But that is not the only climate finance we're talking about. Like President Buhari was alluding to the $100 billion fund that was supposed to have gone over a decade, yes. Which has not really seen much. Less than 15% of that has been paid. So we are talking about climate debt. Those countries, they are next one countries who have followed this path to development and gotten all of us into this problem, have obligation, because that's part of the core of the conversation here in setting agenda for this negotiation. What are we talking about? We're looking at grant-based funding, or we are looking at investment-based funding. We know that grant-based funding will not be enough for the kind of money required, for instance, for energy, just energy transition for Africa. But we are saying that before the investment-based funding comes, the grant-based funding should not be. We should not turn the other way on those, because it's critical. And beyond that, there is something very important that Africa needs to push, which is not yet on the table for conversation. Most of the money that Africa has that should develop Africa resides by hook or crook in many of the developed countries. And we need to bring the monies that Africa loses through illicit financial flow, the monies that Africa loses through unfair trade, the monies that Africa has trapped in terms of looted monies that should